everybody, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Michael Petrow, and joining us in the virtual living room, us meaning me, and horror expert, and if Dr. Seuss could make a character into a human being, Jimmy Skinner and me get to sit down with director Doug Micheal, talk to him on our Manitobans Making Movies series. We know he's from Toronto, but it's like Neil Young. He was born here, and Doug's been here long enough, so we lay claim to both of them now. I now knight you as a Manitoban, Doug. I'm sure you knew that before, and it doesn't matter. Anyways, Doug Micheal's on the show. We talk about his career, what got him into film, how he moved from Ontario to Manitoba and working out here. What has he worked on? Let's just go through the credits. Okay, we have a little show on HBO about Winnipeg called Less Than Kind. Everybody in Winnipeg knows about this show. It's quintessentially Winnipeg, and that's where he kind of cut his teeth. We also have not one, but two Chucky movies. He's worked with that damn doll, ladies and gentlemen. We've also got the Pinkertons, the sheriff show filmed in Canada. What else do we have? Specifically, the big thing, Burden of Truth, this series on CBC. It's a crime drama. It's one of the best crime dramas I've ever watched. It just ended. And we get to talk about his time working with Peter Mooney, Kristin Kruk, the stars of the show, Kristin Kruk being from Smallville, Peter Mooney being from Rookie Blue, and also local Winnipeg talent as well. So if you were a fan of Burden of Truth, there's a big portion dedicated to his career and time on Burden of Truth. Doug is a true gentleman, and he answered all of our nerdy questions about the Chucky doll. So, Doug, thank you so much for putting up with two film nerds for a couple hours. That was very gentlemanly and kind of you, and an education as well. So that's who's on the show. Anybody who's been here before, you can skip the line, get your snacks, head into the theater. Show's about to begin. If you're new and this is your first time and you've pressed play, thank you, first of all. Second, therealdebaters.ca is all I want you to know. That's where everything is us. You can see us. You can subscribe to the show there by learning about all the platforms we're on. You can read our blogs. You can buy our merch if you're so inclined. We got some not so commonplace merch there. I think we've got a skateboard still or two. And then if you want to donate like some pocket change to production costs, because that's where the money would go, you can do that there as well. So therealdebaters.ca. It's pretty simple. Therealdebaters@gmail.com. If you'd like to send one of us an email, send it off. We'll send it back. And Real Debaters online, at Real Debaters on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are the three places you can follow everything about the show. And lastly, this is the portion I like to do and just thank everybody who's been listening, specifically in the top 5 places in Canada and the top 5 places in America. We like and we love that everybody listens to the show, but these are the places that are doing some heavy lifting for us. So to our fans in Winnipeg, thank you for always leading the charge. Followed up by Kentville, Vancouver, Regina, and Selkirk, our top 5 Canadian cities, listening to the most Real Debaters they possibly can. Jimmy, you've got a hometown base now, buddy. I mean, we always knew people from Selkirk were listening, but now they're spiking, so that's all because of Jimmy Skinner. To all of our friends south of the border, San Jose, Cedar Grove, Ashburn, Southington, and New Rochelle. I wonder if that's the New Rochelle from Catch Me If You Can. Could it be? Let us know. Send us an email. Anyways, that's it. That's all, everybody. I give you Doug Micheal. I'll cue the reel, and you enjoy the show.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel. Here is a motion picture film, 1,000 feet, 16,000 separate photographs.
Welcome, everybody, to the official space section of the chart.
What's the truth? You can't handle the truth. Sir, you're out of order. Out of order? I show you out of order.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Real Debaters production. I am Michael Petrow. Joining me in the virtual living room that is Zoom this week is Jimmy Skinner. Say hello, Jimmy.
Hey, everybody. Hi. Hello.
Jimmy brought his headset to the party today, and we were just talking about it before we started recording that Jimmy's very Red Baron, so we're going to try to remember to get a photo of this. We'll make a vintage World War II montage of you in a plane, and it'll actually work. Like if you put on a bomber jacket, I'd be like, you're from Memphis Belle. Like, what's the name of your plane? That's when I'm looking at it. I'm like, what is it? Like Sweet Dolly? Would that be the name of your plane?
Yeah, if I had a plane, I would be too afraid to fly it if it was a Boeing.
Yeah, after last year and last weekend with that flaming engine, yeah.
Didn't like it.
No, not something you want to see on television. Anyways, in the living room with Jimmy and myself is a Winnipeg director who I have been watching from afar because I watched a season of one of the shows he's worked. I've watched multiple shows that this man has worked on. So I feel it was about damn time that he came on the show. We are talking to director Doug Micheal from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hello, Doug.
How you doing, guys? Real nice treat to be on this show. It's becoming a more well-known thing in the industry. I've been talking to some of my buddies about it, and some of them have heard about you guys, some of them haven't. So it's nice to spread the word and be part of it, and kind of sort of help get some of what you're doing out there to the community. I think it's a really, really cool thing that you guys are doing. So
Oh,
thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you for saying yes. I always have a little bit of a lump in my throat when I'm like, "Hey, come do a community podcast." Well, you're working in film and doing those 16-hour days. So when you guys say yes, I know I very much appreciate the spare time because you sometimes don't have a lot. And you being a father, I mean, you're in film and having kids. That's occupying. That's the candle at both ends, sir.
Well, you picked the perfect window. I mean, the industry is about to start lighting up pretty hard, so now's the time because probably in a week's time, I'm going to be that.
Yeah.
You'd never hear from me for the next 6 months.
Smoke, poof,
Yeah,
gone.
exactly.
So, we brought Doug on to showcase another director from Winnipeg, to showcase the work that he's done, but to showcase him specifically and how the film bug bit him, so to speak. So I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm sure I'm going to say it 30,000 more times or until this podcast is done. We like to start at the beginning because it makes the most sense. So when did the film bug bite Doug?
Hmm. Well, you got to go back to when I was probably very young. Um, I've always had an appreciation for the arts. I was always drawing. I was always trying to do pictures. Um, I got into photography kind of in grade 9, and just always watched movies. It was just something I was attracted to, the storytelling, a way to escape. And even as a young teen, I loved being trapped by the TV and getting to forget about the outside world for a bit and just be locked in somebody else's dream for a bit. And it's it's in high school. I did art. I did visual art and painting and drawing, and I was okay. Then I took a photography class and a course with a buddy of mine in grade 10, and we were on like the yearbook committee going around shooting like the soccer team and everything. So I loved photography. I loved drawing and stuff like that, but I wasn't excellent at either one of those. And it came true to light when we in grade 11 they took you to the OCA, the Ontario College of Art, for graphic design, and they took you as a tour as a precursor to choosing your career. So they would take the high school there, and we were walking around the hallways and the displays of all the visual and graphic artists, and I was just going, okay, I'm not this good. Like don't kid yourself, you're not. I thought I was going to go into graphic art and become a graphic artist or some design, and I was like, you are not this good. Be honest with yourself. Even with the training, you're not going to get there. Um, and it wasn't until I heard that in grade 12 they were introducing a film course taught by Walter Shane, who's one of the teachers at our high school. And I was like, well, I'm going to take that. And this is back, you're talking like 1989, 1990. I was in grade 12. And we were taking a film course where our teacher was going to give us a VHS camera. He had VHS editing machines, like dubbing machines. And we learned the history of film. And then we learned about storytelling. We learned about acting. And he basically, our end of year project was, we're going to split up into 4 groups of 5. It was 20 kids in our class, and each group is going to write and direct and act and do all the technical for each of your movies. And your job is to create a 10-minute non-dialogue movie, so that you knew how to do storytelling without dialogue, do it with imagery, do it with music, do it with editing. But you weren't allowed to do dialogue. He said, I don't want to get into that. It's just too tough at this stage. Just learn how to use a camera, just learn how to edit, learn how to integrate music and sound effects. So, and at the time, I was influenced. We'll get into my influences in a bit, but like I was influenced by, epic adventure movies, of course, Star Wars, of course, Indiana Jones's trilogies. Back in that time, that was my bread and butter. Jaws and early on horror movies. So I was like, I'm going to write basically an Indiana Jones spin-off, but have a
You are.
female heroine. So I wrote this thing, and my group was like, "Yeah, you can direct it." Like none of them wanted that chair, and I was like, "Well, I'll do it." So we went out and shot this cool 10-minute film, and we ended up winning the film award in grade 12. It's it's not as glorious as it sounds, but it gave me okay. I wasn't excellent at drawing. I wasn't excellent as an actor. I wasn't excellent at photography, but I was good at collectively putting stories together visually, and that gave me a chance to try it. And once I did it, and my peers kind of went, "Wow, you're pretty good at this." So that instant, I applied to film schools in Ontario, and I was like, "That's it. I'm going to do movies. That's what I want to do." Because I didn't know at that stage until I applied. So that was it.
It's I love that you just like you found it at a really good time. Nobody really finds what. Hang on, I think.
No, Michael's absolutely right. Like a lot of people will spend most of their time trying things and never even find what they're good at, right? And I think when someone, what's the old saying? When someone tells you you're good at something, you have to do it. Like
Yeah.
that's the rule, right?
Well, it was, and quite specifically, I remember it was a learning how to trick the audience with the camera. For instance, I knew I was in love with filmmaking when I realized I had to have my heroine scale a death-defying cliff edge, and but we couldn't actually put my friend on a 200-foot cliff drop, which was near where we lived. So we had to so I had to learn, how do you trick the audience in editing? So I learned they scaled the wall like this, but they were actually on the ground, but it looked like a rock face. And then we did a wide shot of the rock face, and then we did a POV looking down where snow was just drifting off the edge, and it cut it together, and it looked like they were on this 200-foot drop. Once we figured that out, I was like, "Oh my god, I love this!" Like just putting just a simple little moment together to freak the audience out. I'm like, this is fun. This is what I think I'm going to be good at. So that's where it started.
Yeah, it's make believe, right?
Yeah.
It's playing pretend. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, what more fun thing to do? I mean, I'm sure I'm breaching, but what more fun thing to do than take a bunch of people and a bunch of ideas and a bunch of things and then trick somebody into being like, it looks the same as real life.
Yeah.
Like that's a skill and a half. Okay, so you've already you answered another question of mine, but I'm still going to ask it. So it seems like you had the director's bug early on because you landed in the chair that nobody wanted. That's a blessing in disguise because, like Jimmy said, like you don't know until you don't know what you don't know. And did you ever do any other departments? Did you move around before you came back to it, or did you just go solely into film school to be like, I want to be a director, no ifs, ands, or buts about it?
Well, okay. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to these film schools and try this out and try and learn how to be a director right from the get go. And so I applied to Ryerson, did some research, took their tour. But at the time, I didn't actually like what they were pitching, because they were saying the first year of Ryerson was all going to be theory, and you wouldn't actually touch a camera until second year. And I'm a hands-on learner. I wasn't great at all the math and science grades. I was excellent at arts, but so I was like, I don't want to read books for a year. Give me a camera. I want to tangibly put something together. Give me the editing tools. Give me a crew. Let me just start figuring things out. So, and I applied to Sheridan College and Seneca College. So that was the three. I got accepted to all three, but Sheridan College was the one I wanted because they had an animation department back then, and even still now. I think Disney still pulled animators out of Sheridan graduates, so it was world renowned, that college, for animation. It had a drama course, so it had theater students in one wing. So in a way, it was like a no brainer for me. I thought, they let you touch gear right away. I'm in. And funny enough, on top of the application process, you had to do something else as part of your application. And what it was their theme that year was bicycles, and you had to do anything. You could do a commercial on bicycles, you could do a how-to, you could do a short documentary, you could do whatever. Just show us what you want to try while you're at the school. Show us what tools you have. And at the time, I was a big mountain biker, like racing and mountain bikes. And me and my buddies, it's all we did in gravel pits and raced through Blue Mountain and a whole bunch of places in Ontario. So I was a big cyclist. So I was like, are you kidding me? So I went out with my camera, with my high school buddies, and we shot these amazing shots with my buddies doing cool tricks and climbs and descends.
Yeah.
And I put it to the theme of Top Gun's anthem. And I cut it all together, and even today, it's so cool to watch because it's so '90s retro, and it's only 3 minutes long. But that was part of my entry application, and once I got in, I was like, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, and I got to ask you before we move on, did you have the famous high five in your movie?
No, that was something I did not want to do.
There
We did it with something else. Yeah,
was there
we didn't want to do the volleyball high five in that, if you know what I mean.
I totally know what you mean. I was like, was there a shirtless volleyball break in the middle of all the action too?
Well, we were showing how truly Canadian we were because I shot it in March and it was still melting snow. So we were out there mountain biking in snow and mud and dirt and just kind of like, there ain't no shirtless opportunities here. So.
Totally, unless you're part of the Panther club. Shit.
Well, and the other thing I should mention before I get into the college years is that I was always the kid with the video camera in high school, because the library and because of my film prof said, use the cameras anytime you want, sign them out. So I was the guy like filming everything, Battle of the Bands. I was shooting talent shows. I was shooting graduations. I was making side hustles, like paying parents were giving me $10 a VHS tape for copies of their kids' graduations. So I have all, and my buddies, my old high school buddies, are going to have a rude awakening. I still have, and I just finished transferring old high school footage of us being drunk. I would take the camera home to our drunk parties. I'm going to surprise them next year with an edited, like half an hour featurette of all of us partying in high school, and they're going to lose their minds. So I was always the kid with the camera, and that's sort of where I got my bug too, was because I got to use it so much. So.
You remind me. Did you ever see Exit Through the Gift Shop?
No.
It's the documentary about Banksy. It's the most accurate one, but it's a story. Anyways, Terry, next time you watch it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Do watch it. But this guy doesn't go anywhere without a video camera. Anywhere. And it's because he never went anywhere without one that he has all this stuff. So I think that's super fucking cool that you were like, I'm just gonna most intimate moments, and now you can give somebody some nostalgia, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've got hours of footage to cut together, and I'm gonna spend over the next year in between all of my projects to do that, and hopefully there'll be a Christmas present for my old high school friends that I haven't seen in years.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best gift shopper who's ever graced our show is Doug Mitchell. You are the best gift shopper on the planet to give somebody a Christmas present. It's the most genuine, memorable gift you could possibly get. I want you to shop for me. Anyways, so college years, you're going through school. So it was always directing because of the camera. I mean, and because you're constantly looking through a camera. I mean, it's hard to want to. I mean, it would be hard to be like, well, let's go into costume or let's go into grip or lighting, right? Like if you're playing with the thing that captures the moment, so it's gonna rub off on you, for lack of a better term. Films, TV, a lot of creative process that goes into this. Sometimes most dramatically in the editing process. Now that, or actually, no, I don't want to ask that yet. Sorry, I'm out of order here, guys. Let's step back here. Here's the question I wanted to ask. Okay, I often wonder why anybody would want to direct. This is what I wanted to know from you. Sitting there, watching people who directed before you are constantly being bamboozled with a bunch of questions. So knowing that that's what you're watching and learning, what is it about you that loves that process?
Well, I came up, I came up through the film industry through the assistant director chain. So I'm not sure how much you know about that side of the world, but the assistant directing team is in charge of sort of scheduling the movie, breaking down the scripts, running all the meetings with all the different departments, and you work with the director and the producers on how to hone in and logistically organize each shooting day, till it's manageable within our budget and time frame, and using experience you've had in the past to say that kind of a sequence would take X amount of time with that kind of gear, and and you always go back and forth with the script. So that's how I started. I worked as a trainee, became a third AD, a second, and eventually I became a first, which is the person that runs the floor. They're the voice you hear mostly on a set, calling out all the cues, calling out all the roles, and stuff like that. So I was used to it from a very early on in my that everybody comes to the ADs, the assistant directors, for questions about everything because we have to organize everybody and get them to come into a place to fit the director's vision. So because I was so used to that, when I got to directing, when I actually got to direct dramatic TV or, feature, I'm kind of used to it, and it became a more of a fun collaborative thing. It can get intense at times, obviously.
Sure.
Like you
Yeah.
get asked hundreds of questions a day, so it is a lot. But if you went from nothing to that, you would probably be overwhelmed and not fit that. But because I kind of gradually it increased through my career and through my expertise, it became a normal collaboration fit that I actually thrive from. And then when I got to the directing thing, it was even more fun because it was even more creative and less logistical. It was kind of talking with the costume designers and the production designers about the creative aspects instead of just the logistics.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's kind of what I was segueing into. So thank you for taking the lead on that. And I think that like that I love that that's how it happened because you just accumulated getting used to it and eventually like it's because I guess somebody who wants to jump right into it right off the hop, which it I read up on second unit, even third unit, depending on the size of the film. If I'm not mistaken, like the bigger the film gets, the more units you want to involve because it's just that it's huge, right? Like you see
Yeah.
the third unit on a Marvel film, and you're like, "Holy mo!" And I read into it, and it seems to me, and this is just a layman speaking here, but you guys are in charge of sewing the movie together so the seamlessness of a movie in your department. Like there's the directors doing the big scenes and calling for all the stuff, but it's your job to organize the movie so it's got the continuity and story that you want to tell. So you're like the spine, you might say, of making the movie bridge together.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm layman.
No, that's it's pretty accurate. I mean, the first AD is the person that has to make sure that all the right pieces are talking to each other to cohesively, because you'll meet directors that are actually quite soft spoken that aren't as out extroverted as maybe I am, right? And so I have to listen to them and talk to them and hold meetings with them and then understand what they're after and then get all the right people talking so that we can get their vision out there. It's a communication art, really, because you have so many different personalities to work with. You could have an aggressive person on one thing that's really out there, and you have to learn how to work with that person to still get their vision out there to everybody. Or, I mean, just personalities are so unique and different that you have to know how to work with those with all different types of people. And that's a personality trait that it is hard to teach because there are some people that are just set in their ways. They're not going to budge. I'm not going to adjust my ways to work with them. Well, then you wouldn't make it in that position, in my opinion. You need to be someone that is a little versatile in your workflow so that you can adjust to the other people, to the directors or the producers or and you need to kind of work with everybody a little bit. So.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I was just caught up in what you were saying, but yeah, it is because like a gig, it changes every time. It's not the same, I mean, unless you're like Tim Burton and you always call on Johnny Depp or Martin Scorsese always calling on Leo, right? Like,
Yeah.
but that's a very unique thing where yeah, you're gonna go from feature film to TV so your style of directing is changing, your pacing is changing, your crew size might be changing depending on how small the film is or the TV.
Oh, sure.
Vice versa. So you got to adapt. You got to be a Russian fucking gymnast inside sometimes and be like, all right, roundabout, switch it up, figure this out, new set, new life, new rules. Okay, okay, so that answers my question because sitting from over here and like I said to Jimmy before we started recording, everything I know about life comes from TV and movies until Shauna corrects me, which is my lovely wife. And I'll be like, that's true. And she's like, that doesn't happen in real life. And I'm like, but it happened on Ocean's 11. Anyways, point in fact here is hearing everything from the friends I have in film and being on the side of you guys. I would explode when three people at my job come to me all at the same time. I just start to have this little fucking internal temper tantrum. So I think it's a superpower to sit there and be like, all right, each department, launch your mission, give them directives, have everything lined up for 30 seconds of the perfect shot.
Yeah. it's super fun. I gotta tell you, it's when it works, man. You just sit back and you just look at everyone. You go, guys, we pulled that off. Like that was a big deal, you know. Because you're right. All the different projects I've worked on, it can range from, like Burden of Truth. We had a crew of 75 people. Manageable. It's fairly tight, nice and small, whatever. But I've also been on big features where you have 220 people, and there's a huge, and then there's of course short films and documentaries where they're much smaller, right, like 15, 12 people sometimes, or commercial shoots where it's like 30, so, or it depends on the commercial, but it is a very versatile, um, industry where you have many different things to kind of adjust to. So, and when I started, I didn't know it at the time. I was very lucky and very fortunate that when I came out of college, and maybe I'll backtrack in a bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no.
basically when I got into the industry, I was, plucked out by someone who knew, said, "Oh yeah, you should come and be my office PA and work for me." And I got on this amazing, really, high budget series called La Femme Nikita in Toronto,
Jesus.
and that was 1996. I got that, yeah.
Who was
And
there's who was in that? I remember the show. I just don't remember.
Peter Wilson was the lead,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And Roy Dupuis was the other male lead. And then there's like Eugene Glazer and a bunch of the other ensemble cast. But that was an 8-month, 22 episode, 1 hour dramatic series. And so I was employed for 8 months a year.
He's yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time. I was like, "Oh, you want to come on the series? It's long. It's 8 months." I'm like, "Sure, I'm not doing anything." And I was like, I didn't realize I was getting the opportunity of a lifetime, because what ended up happening, that show went for 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So I went from a trainee assistant director in the first season. I upgraded to a third AD in the second season. I stayed as a third and got tons of set experience, learned how to set extras, worked with 12 different directors, learning how to do shots with, we had all the toys. We had crane shots. We had a second unit running full time, like 2 days a week. It was all like SWAT teams and gunfire and explosions and tanks and really high end cars and international spy stuff and cool props that were being designed and made just specifically for the show. So it was like, holy crap, I'm getting all this experience for my first 4 years in the industry. Unlike if someone were to start today, there's no guarantee of that anymore. Like everyone's fighting for the next like 5-week gig. And I didn't realize at the time how lucky I was. I had 4 years lined up of work on that show, as long as I showed up every day and actually kept working my ass off. But that gave me my first 4 years, and by that time I was a second AD by the end of that 4 years, and from there I was off and running. So what I'm trying to get at is that I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work on a bigger budget show that taught me a lot of bigger tricks early on in my career, and I learned from some of the best in the industry, the best production manager, producer, and the directors that I got to watch work, for 4 years,
Yeah.
and learn what their styles are, learn how they communicated to actors. I was basically studying for my opportunity when I got to direct. Yeah, I was making notes every night, going, "Okay, I'd like to, okay, write that down. That's it," and that was my education. Because quite honestly, when I went to film school, you know, um, no disrespect, because it was an amazing time, but it taught me how to be a broke independent filmmaker. It didn't teach me about the union world. It didn't teach me about that you could join the Directors Guild of Canada and actually create a logistical career. They, it was preparing you to be an independent filmmaker, and that's great. But I also didn't see me succeeding in a career that way. So I chose
Yeah.
to go into the union world and go up the steps so I could learn the craft from many different points of view. And then by the time I got my shot, I would have the tools and be prepared enough to succeed and continue on. So that was sort of my mentality going through all that.
That's wicked. Like, and to be young and to catch that, like, I would have just been so dumbfounded. I'd been like, "How am I here? Oh, what's going on?" And
Well,
like,
don't get me wrong. I was like that most of the time too. Don't get But it's seizing the opportunity and just knowing, like, dude, like, yeah, it just felt like there was someone on my shoulder going, "Dude, you know the opportunity you're getting right now? Like, don't waste this.
yeah,
Like, don't screw this up, because you could turn this into something if you pay attention."
yeah. It's why you're so good today, man.
You're inspiring to all of us broke artists.
Well, it's a tough industry, isn't it? Like it's cruel, it's fickle, and it's unpredictable. And to survive in any creative industry, you got to have a tough heart, tough skin, and just to want to kind of continue on even though you get beat down. It's you got to have something else inside you that can kind of swim past that and say, I'm not going to let that beat me. I'm not going to let that tear me down, because I know that I'm here for something better. I'm here for something interesting and creative, and I want to have a chance to show that. So
It's interesting that the hero's journey story arc is actually every film professional's career. Perseverance, overcoming,
yeah.
deep inside, finding a way to break through and winning in the end. Like that's a film career because it's almost like everything in film essentially you have to start at the bottom because it's about being known for your craft and then eventually latching onto the right situations and taking advantage of the right opportunities like you did and then slowly but surely working your way up to where everybody's getting noticed because you can't put spotlight everywhere like that, then though it would mean nothing, right? So
Yeah.
but at the same time, I mean, yeah, you're right, like, but I mean, isn't life cruel and fickle and hard? Aren't you
Exactly.
interpreting life on film? So technically, it's like whatever. I'm no psychologist. Now I'm going to ask the question I meant to not ask earlier, and I'm going to ask it better than I tried to ask it before.
Sure.
As a director, are you heavy in the editing process, or are you done when you're done? Because some people are like a gig is a gig and I'm up, or do you want to be a part of post production as much as you were on set?
Well, okay. Well, there's a few things. I can only speak to television series editing
Yeah.
and feature film editing. Um, in television series, you do edit. It's part of your contract when you are hired that you a not only have to deliver the shooting material. You have to sign a contract that says I will bring everything in on schedule, on time. I will shoot the story that is in the script, but you also are guaranteed X amount of editing days with your editor. Um, so you will go and edit, and you do what's called a director's cut. And in television series, because there are creative producers and showrunners that are the boss, and they're the ones that overlook, all of the episodes. So there is a season arc that ties in, and they control the writers' room. Once I hand over my director's cut after 6 days or whatever it ends up being, um, I'm kind of done at that point. So what happens after I hand that in is now the producers watch it, and the producers do what's called a producer's cut. And because there will be things I may not know about what the other directors have shot or developed in their episodes, they're going to go, oh yeah, but we rewrote that scene in episode 7 that affects something that Doug's episode says here, so we got to just trim that line out. So
Okay.
there are always little massages that have to happen that can only really come from the showrunners that are on the show the entire time. I'm only there for 2 episodes out of the 8, right? So especially in the post process, and then once the producers do their cut, they do the final mix, the sound effects, the ADR, the looping for additional lines with the actors, and they put it through the polish process that I don't get to be part of. It just sometimes they'll recut a scene of mine to their liking, and that's their prerogative, and they do it, and that's it. In features, it's way more fun because you get to sit there with your editor for like it can be up to a month, right? When you're just in the edit room and you do your rough cut, you still have to send it away to your network, whoever it is, if it's Hallmark or Mar Vista Entertainment or whatever, and they make their notes, and then you got to adjust to their notes because they're your boss. So you and the editor will go through the 100 notes that they have that you have to make some adjustments.
Yep.
But then once the picture's locked, this is my favorite part of filmmaking. Is Well, it's become part of my favorite thing. Is just getting to do the music mix, like do the music scoring
Oh
with
yeah.
your composer. You get to watch the rough cut and you say, I want to have music come in here, and I want to feel this that we didn't quite get out of the actor, but if you put a little something there, all of a sudden the audience is going to go, oh my God. Or and then you get to put in like the sound effects, and then And then the color time, then you go with the colorist, and you go and they make sure the film's got a look with you and your DP will go in and do the color timing and make sure it's got a beautiful, concentric look, that everything is, gorgeous, and the way that, that you want it to look. And then that final mix, when you do everything, just the final touches on everything, and you sit there and you watch it and you make your final adjustments and you go, oh my God, like that, it's done. Oh my God. Like it is really magical, because sometimes you can shoot a scene one way and you can edit it in a whole other way to give it a completely different tone, right? You cut away before the actor smiles, but they actually smiled. Like, hey, you cut away before the actor smiles. Now the intent of that scene and the opposing actor, wow, she didn't really like what he said. I'm like, no, but when we shot it, she smiled. He said, what? Yeah, put it in, cut it back. And now it changes the tone of the scene. So editing has a miraculous ability to change things. Even if, like, they say the producers called and said, you know what, she's not coming off as bubbly as we hoped in the performance on the day of shooting. Is there anything you can do to kind of find that? I said, okay, give me a sec with the editor, and we'll call you back. And we would dig through other takes, and we think it's like we can make her a little more bubbly by cutting away from her earlier, cut to the guy, and we can ADR in her laughing or something. So there's this malleable opportunity in editing that can change things or bring it to life even more than you ever imagined. So things are an evolutionary change through the script, through the shooting and editing. And sometimes you won't even realize the final product in its entirety until you get into the editing room. And that's sometimes the movie magic that is just wonderful to watch.
That's so fucking poetic, eh, Jimmy?
Man, I'm just lost in his words when he speaks.
I know. Like it's I wanted, like, you're just throwing nuggets at me, man. I love it because I really wanted to know how TV and how film, I mean, you from my side of the couch, you can see how it's produced and whatever, and there's a writer's room and there's a show, but you don't know what they do beyond Googling shit on the net. And that's not fun after a while. So like I was like, it almost seems like, with a film being one and done, you can put all you can into it and play with it. Like you said, is malleable. But with TV, because you're arcing, right, and you have a start and a finish, and there's a projection there. It doesn't sound as much fun because it sounds almost contractual versus creative.
In which way? Sorry,
like with TV, the way you were describing.
Yeah, it is, and it's so that, and for a good reason. It's so that the showrunner, who is the ultimately the creator of the stories that go into the episode, that showrunner directs the writers room. Okay, we're going to put up all our idea cards on each episode up on the wall, and we're going to say, Doug needs to fall off a cliff in this and suffer a break, and and they go through all the story points. But one showrunner needs to keep an eye on all 6 writers and make sure that they're not going off on a tangent that the other episodes can't lay the groundwork for. So it's sort of like a triangle that way. And the creative producers are up there with the showrunner, and they need to make sure that, in our case, like Burden of Truth, they need to make sure that all 8 episodes have a season arc or a character arcs that go through it that are cohesive. And you really need one person or 2 people in charge of that, because as a TV director on series, you are contracted for 2 episodes. So in our case, there's 4 directors, 2 episodes each make the 8 episodes. So 4 different directors have 4 different visions, but you kind of have to shoot it in the style of the show and what the producers up top are known for. Like, that's why we're in season 4. We created a look, we created a story arc, and you can't go off on a tangent and start shooting Fincher style on Burden of Truth. Like you can't do that. You got to keep it within. And meetings with the showrunners and that will tell you, this is our style. We'd like you to cater to how we shoot things. You're not shoehorned into anything.
Yeah,
you're given a guide track basically, and you're like, okay, I see your show's look, and you go for it. So.
Yeah, I went a little dark there on negative on it, but yeah, no, it's and because it's, I would imagine, like, it's compressed, right? Like, you can do a film, you can go on set for a couple months, do it, and then like have 3 or 4 months in the editing room where you're trying to get to the next season, and everybody's trying to get off projects onto the next project. So it just seems a little bit more Like it's got a fast.
That's also the other way. It's just so that the directors aren't tied up for 3 months just to do a recap for a couple of days on an episode. It helps the rotation of getting everybody work to. I don't think that is written anywhere, but that's sort of like an industry. It's just effective, right? It keeps everybody moving and keeps the shows going. So
I would really love it though, if like, like I mean, it's a lot of money, so you can't do it. But wouldn't it be fun to be like, all right, we're gonna do Nolan on this episode, we're gonna do Fincher on this episode, we're gonna do Terrence Malick on this episode, we're gonna do some Spielberg, some Lucas, we're gonna do some Hitchcock, we're gonna pay homage to Hitchcock, like just fucking go off the like WandaVision.
yeah.
But-
It's almost like American Horror Story, where every season was
Yeah.
its own animal, right? It's like kind of interesting that way.
That was fun that they built that into it. We're teeter tottering very close to all of the work we've done. So let's just we'll move into that now. I do want to find out one thing though, and this is just my curiosity because I'm a little superstitious myself. But do you have any like traditions or requirements that when you get on set and get off set, like when you start a production and end a production? Is there any little quirky thing that you do that
Not so much quirky. I just know like right before we go to camera, it's this is funny. I've never really said this out loud. I kind of give myself a little pep talk
Nice.
on the drive-in on day one of shooting, because like I am so excited to get shooting that I kind of can't wait to get on the floor. That's where I thrive. That's where I've always been comfortable. At a certain point, I hate prep. I'm just like, screw it. Let's just hit the floor and start shooting. But I kind of give myself a little pep talk and try and remind myself that in the stress of making these movies, because it always gets stressful, remember to just breathe for 10 seconds and remember what you're doing and how great this opportunity is to be here. And even if you find yourself midday and it's really stressful, if you just all you need to do is step away for 30 seconds, go breathe, and come back, and you just have a better thing. And then what I do is I make sure I thank the crew at the end of the day. You don't just wait till the end of the movie. I try and make a point to hit the key department heads or anybody as I'm leaving set, because they really just put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the day. And I think it's really, my routine is really just to try and show as much appreciation to everybody that just worked their asses off on the day. And the only other quirky thing that was funny that happened when I got my first directing gig, it was Less Than Kind that I got the opportunity. The office staff, you would know her, Tamara Mouthy.
Oh, I love Tamara.
She was like this. Oh, Doug's gonna get to direct. Are you gonna have any like rider requests in your contract that we have to cater? Are you gonna ask for your own trailer? And I said, you know what, Tamara, I do. You know what I'm going to put in my rider? I want a bowl of green M&Ms at the monitors when I show up on day one. And so the whole office staff laughed at me, and they were like, oh my God, of course you would say that. They were so sweet that on day one, they actually bought like 8 bags of M&Ms, sorted out all the green ones, and gave me this perfect little white bowl of green M&Ms on day one. And it just warmed my heart. It was like, you guys are the best. Thanks very much.
That's so Tamara, you're the shit. You know that.
I know. Tamara's backed me since day one. She's also the reason that me and my wife are together.
Oh wow, yeah, she's everybody's godmother. She's very godmother,
Totally,
right? Like
totally.
godmother to all of us and everybody in film in Winnipeg. I don't think, yeah, whatever. We won't get into that. We're flirting with work here. I don't want to talk about my day job. It's done. But let's talk about your work, Doug. So Less Than Kind. Jimmy, did you ever see Less Than Kind?
Unfortunately, I have not seen Less Than Kind.
Okay.
I think I was I think I may have been 3 or 4 years old.
Okay. All right.
Well, now you're dating me.
Yeah, me too. I feel the cops are going to keep knocking. No, I'm kidding. So Less Than Kind, you said, is where you started to get to direct. Jimmy, just for some backdrop here, it is a story about a Jewish family who owns a driving school in Winnipeg, and it was on HBO for 4 seasons, Doug? 4 seasons? And its backdrop is Winnipeg. It takes place in Winnipeg. And Maury Chaikin,
yeah.
Chaikin. Oh, man, I'm 2 for 2. He Dances with Wolves, this, mostly theater, but he was like a New York Winnipeg hybrid. He lived in New York
Yeah.
for a bit, lived here as well too. His mom's from here. Anyways, he's this genius theater dramatic actor, and Doug got to work with him. So I'm just going to start there. What's it like working with his style? He just looked so much fun.
Well, I started that show as the first AD on season 1.
Okay.
So I got to know everybody and know the show and know the actors, and I was the first assistant director, or one of them. I think Richard Duffy was the other one that we were rotating the blocks. So I got to know the showrunners and the producers and the directors of that season. Then season 1 ended. We were waiting to hear if we were going to get a season 2, and I kid you not, Mark McKinney from Kids in the Hall, if you're a old fan of those guys, he was our showrunner, right? Him and the 2 other creators, Chris Shays Green and Marvin Kaye, called me on Christmas Eve. No joke. And they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you doing calling me?" I mean, it's great to hear your voices. I haven't talked to you in a few months, but what's up? Well, we want to know if you'd be interested in directing an episode in season 2 coming next summer. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So that was like my gift. It was my first time getting to an offer to direct a network TV dramatic comedy from these guys, and so that was like, okay, so that's amazing. I'm like, are you kidding? So I still got the first AD a few blocks of the show, and then I would direct an episode. So I still got to work on the whole season 2.
Yeah, yeah.
So working with Maury, of course, like the other actors, very approachable, very easy to talk to a
Oh,
little bit.
fascinating.
Maury's a little bit more method in some ways, but I don't think he would have called it that. I think he's his own person, and he's not very chatty, like he's not someone that just cut, "Hey, so how was your weekend?" He's not that guy. Um, but I've had my nice moments with him, and they are few but very special moments with him. And my first time directing with him, I was so nervous that day because I'm like, oh my God, it's my first day actually directing Maury. And I thought, what am I going to tell Maury Chaikin? I mean, what direction could I offer as a relatively new director, even though I've been in the industry for 18 years?
This is what I'm looking for.
I
This is
was
what
like,
I'm looking for.
what? So anyway, we were shooting a scene in the studio. It was a scene where he was hospitalized, and his eldest son comes in the hospital room with an old man scooter to say, "Dad, look what we got you!" Right? Anyway, so we did the master shot, and then we had another camera on him as his close up, and he usually you just let him go because he gives you gold no matter what. You give him 3 takes, he'll give you something different every time, and it's amazing. But I was like, there was one thing I wanted him to try just to offset something Wendell was doing, his on camera wife, and I was like so nervous to go up to him, and he just deadpan in the hospital bed. I walked up to him and I said, "Hey Maury, I just if you wouldn't mind, when your son says this line, can you just throw your head over to your wife and just give her a little look at that right after that line? It'll tie something in I'm doing with the other camera." And he just looked at me like and didn't say a word, almost like, "Who the F are you?" Now he didn't say that. It just he didn't acknowledge my request. So I said, "Okay, Maury, it's okay. You don't have to. I just thought I'd throw it out there. Okay, all right, let's roll, guys. Let's roll." And then we rolled, and I'm watching the take, and he does the direction I asked for, and we cut, and he looked at me and just winked. That's it. And
Oh,
it was the confidence boost I kind of needed to. And I was like, after that moment, I was fine. Like I was okay. It's like he was so kind to do that for me because he knew I was nervous, and he knew that just that little thing would help me calm down, and then I could do my job. And it's because big actors like that, and when you're a new director or something, you do think about what
sure.
can I offer them, so it was cool.
I love that. Jimmy, have you seen Dances with Wolves, Jimmy?
Not in a long time, no.
Okay. Do you remember when, like, and you may not, but it's like the scene when he wants to get a new posting. He goes to see the guy, and he stands up and he's like, "I've pissed my pants, and there's not a thing anyone can do about it." That's Maury Chaikin.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, my favorite line. I have said that line over and over the years. "I've just pissed my pants. There's nothing anyone can do about it." Yeah, God bless him. He passed away, in between season 3 and 4 there, but he was a real gem. and the cast, the whole ensemble cast was just, an incredible family. And we still kind of, there's some of the crew, we still have an annual hangout. That was such a family type show that it touched all of us. So
It was. I wrote it in the notes for Doug that I worked the bar they filmed Wendell and her sister going to for drinks and whatnot was Peasant Cookery, and I worked there.
oh yeah, that's right.
And they'd leave their call sheets behind, and I'd be like, "Look, I have a call sheet," and like,
Yeah.
lose my shit that I had some artifact from a show that I liked because it's not dark comedy, but it's a little dramedy in some ways. With that,
Yeah, and I think it was a little ahead of its time. I mean, honestly, it's just comedic gold. It's so
oh,
funny, and because we had the ability to not hide Winnipeg anymore. A lot of movies they come to shoot here, they treat it as Chicago or whatever, Detroit. But this was like, no, show Winnipeg. Go ahead. We're writing about Winnipeg, so the writing was just gold, and it was super funny, and it still is. Like it holds up today. I still, not just because of my nostalgia to the show. It was legitimately good writing and great acting, great
yeah,
timing and chemistry. I mean, it was awesome.
and it's HBO. It's got the seal of approval. Once HBO puts their three big letters on it with that sound, I mean, and you're right. It's I watched it a year ago, and I was just sitting on the couch, just belly laughing, like just the siphoning of gas because the driving school, like it's all about the family's driving school going under, and they're trying to maintain this successful front, and everything's going to shit, and he mentions the ensemble cast. Is it easy? Is it like farting through silk, as my grandpa used to say, when you have such a fantastic ensemble cast, they know each other, they're jiving with each other, and everything's lining up, and everything's working. Is that just more fun as a director, or does that
Oh
kind of
yeah.
throw you off?
No, it's great. I mean, that's I think that's where a lot of the comedic gold came from, is just the chemistry between everybody. We knew from the first day of shooting that this was going to be something, because they all, it's not necessarily that they all got along. It's not about, being personable. It was about how their characters bonded in the scenes. And once we saw some of that happening, we were all just like, did that just happen? Like, and what's funny is, as a crew member watching, and you have to be quiet, right? But sometimes you want to laugh out, you want to belly laugh during a take, and
Yeah.
sometimes that happened. In fact, our showrunner was classic. Mark McKinney was classic for watching at the monitors and going, "Cut, Mark. Sorry, guys. Sorry." So, it just, the chemistry of the cast was just wonderful, and getting to know them over the years has been a real special treat. And there are very few, there are very few shows that anybody that works in the film industry can say feels like family. And like La Femme Nikita back in the '90s, for me, my first 4-year show, that was a family thing. Like, it felt like family when that show was shut down. That was a crusher. Same with Less Than Kind. When that show was done, that was a crusher because we all bonded. And Burden of Truth is the same. It was 4 years of just incredible bonding with very special people. And those three shows to me are like my family shows over the career. So
It comes through, man. Like it is such a it is a the whole family can sit down and watch Less Than Kind and all chuckle and laugh and enjoy it. So I have it, like I bought it, Jimmy. So I'll get it over to you.
Please do.
Yeah, come over. We'll watch it one day when COVID breaks.
Right on.
So moving on, I'm gonna take the passenger seat for a second here, because next on the list is a movie about a little doll, and Jimmy has an absolute love for horror movies. So Jimmy, I'm just going to hand it over to you for a second, and we can let you steer the ship into Chucky, because Doug got to work on Chucky here in Winnipeg, and God damn it, you love that doll.
Like, if I'm gonna ask anything, I think I'll start with the question that we asked friend of the show Doug Morrow.
oh, Dougie.
Is Jennifer Tilly as wonderful as I assume she is?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yep. Absolutely.
that just warms my heart.
Yep. She was awesome. I mean, she didn't come for the whole shoot. We deliberately scheduled her for, I think, I don't know, I think 3 or 4 or 5 days, something like that max, right? And she'd come in and do her thing. But she is lovely. She is a lovely woman. She's so talented. She's beautiful. She's just, she doesn't age, that woman, right? And she's just she was wonderful to work with. Absolutely.
Oh, that warms my heart, and I know it warms the hearts of everybody listening as well. Well,
oh, go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry, I'll shut up.
oh sure. Just because I believe you worked on Colton Curse, right?
Yeah, two of the feature films were shot here. I think 2 years apart, 3 years apart.
Right. Uh, and I love these movies because it absolutely shows Don Mancini's growth from, especially after Seed, which I love personally. I enjoyed Seed of Chucky very much. But I love to see his growth in Colton Curse. Like, it's unbelievable just to watch that. So what was it like to be around that at the time and watching him grow and become, frankly, an excellent director that I love?
Yeah, I mean, I hats off, because he didn't direct a ton before this. He was the writer, he was the producer in that, but the whole hands-on directing really kicked in here for Curse there, when he first brought the first movie here to Winnipeg. And he is just one of the most admirable filmmakers I've had the honor to work with. He truly loves what he does, and he's like a little kid in his passion in every approach to doing it. Um, and he really trusted all of us. I was the first AD on it, and I did some second unit directing for the features, but he really trusted me, and he trusted Mike Marshall and Craig Sandels, who were the director of photography and the production designer, to really help him figure out how we're going to do this. Because originally, shooting some of the old movies, they used to do, raised sets with puppeteers underneath the floor and stuff for the doll. And, we had to figure out a way to shoot a Chucky movie without that, because we just didn't have the money and the time to build that kind of a set. We had to do something different. So he worked for months before coming to Winnipeg, shot listing it with a storyboard artist. So when he came to Winnipeg, he already had, like, I don't know, at least 50% of the movie visually figured out. And from that, we could help him shape everything else. So he's just wonderful to talk to, and he's so kind, and he listens to everybody's opinions and collaborates well, and just somebody you love making a movie with, because he's that kind of guy.
Oh, again, that just warms my heart and makes me so happy to hear.
Well, and
uh,
and he knows the doll. He knows how to shoot it. He's been around it for how many, 25 years, 30
right.
years. So he knows what his puppeteer guys can do. He's been working with them since the beginning, that originally created them. So it was,
It,
and I had never worked with puppets before, and they're a bitch. Let me tell you. Like, it was awesome working on that movie, but it logistically, it was a bitch. So, like, imagine a little 31-inch doll is on set, and there's puppeteers with rods, and okay, all right, we want to shoot the doll in front of the bed doing this with the knife. Okay, great. So you need 3 puppeteers underneath with the rods. You need the speaking puppeteer at the computer making the mouth move, and you need every one of these 3 puppeteers lying on the floor need their own little monitor. Okay, well, now we have to get them a grip stand with a monitor. Now they got to move it there. Where are we going to put the camera? Well, the camera sees 2 of the knees of the puppeteers. Okay, we'll move the camera down so it shoots up. Well, now we're seeing the lighting that Mike Marshall just put in. Crap. Turn the doll 90 degrees to the right. Maybe we'll shoot it over here. Like, every adjustment you made was a bitch to get it right. But when you would pull off a shot and the puppet would come to life, and the lighting and the lightning would kick in, and you just sat there and went, holy crap. And it would take a long time to shoot a movie with a puppet. It's more time than shooting animals and kids. It's insane, but it is one of the coolest feelings when you finish a Chucky movie and go, man, we did that. Wow, it's cool. So, and it was
right
fun.
on.
It made us feel like kids sometimes, I got to tell you.
Oh, that just talking about the puppet and how, as you called it, a bitch to work with. I just were there any points, like, how many different versions do you think they had of the Chucky doll on set at one time?
Oh God. Okay. Well, I remember the first time meeting the doll. I remember like because Dawn had flown up to Winnipeg to do the scouting and do all the preliminaries, and we're like, when are the puppeteers coming? And then when they came, of course, they bring all their animatronics and all their different sets of that. So we were out scouting around North Winnipeg, and I got the memo that the puppeteers had just landed in Winnipeg, and they're now getting all their stuff to the studio and unpacking and setting up their workshop in the studio. And I kept going, oh, I can't wait to get back so I can go meet the doll. And I remember that by the time we got back, everyone had to race up for a meeting. But I was like, I'm going to go in and meet the puppeteers and meet the doll. I go into the studio. I guess it was break time for the Carps who were building the set, and I don't know where the puppeteers were. So it was just me in a giant studio with the frickin' Chucky doll lying on a table by itself with its eyes like looking right at me. I'm like, I'm out. Bye. I'm out. It's too freaky. I can't. I need a human near it to prove to me that it's not alive. Like even in its culture, it's like it scared the crap out of me. And
Oh my God.
but the different versions, I don't want to give away all the secrets of Don Mancini's world, but there are multiple versions. Of course, there's the half doll that you need to do for close-ups. There's the realistic head to toe doll that needs to be there. And he does not like using CGI. He still likes to
No.
do the old school puppeteering. Sometimes there is some assistance in that when you absolutely need it, but he likes to use the real puppet, and that's why it's so visceral. That's why even the movies made in the 2016 and 18 versions are that effective, because he is true to the old fan base that want the puppet. They don't want a fully CGI. Like remember when Star Wars did the full CGI Yoda and everyone went, "Oh, come on. Like where's the it just wasn't as cool as it could have been." So him being that true to the culture of it really pays off in that respect. So
Oh, absolutely. And I just have I have one more quick question for you. A friend of mine lives out in kind of the sticks, kind of the boonies, just outside of Winnipeg. But he told me that you guys may have filmed a little bit at Okamic Marsh. Is that
oh my God, yes.
is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, so what was it like? Where you guys were filming in the winter, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was the coldest effing days ever. So that sequence was, oh my God, you just brought back like 100 memories I haven't thought about in years. We had to find that was for Cult of Chucky, because it was
Right.
the insane asylum. So we don't have an insane asylum in Winnipeg, right? We have some cool buildings, but to have it be out in the story wanted this truck driving on this lone road and finding this insane asylum, but didn't quite have all the things we needed. So what we did was the front of the insane asylum and the iron gates that he wanted was at the old police station downtown, right on Princess there, that's now not, it been knocked down. So we used that as the front facade where the car would pull up and the iron gates were there, and Fiona Dorff's character would go in and out of. That was the cool building look that we used for that. But we needed a reverse. The reverse was looking into Red River College. Well, that's not out
Right.
in the boonies. So the reverse, we took the iron gates and put them out at Okamic Marsh. And if you go out, if you've ever been there, you'll know there's a big teardrop and pull in, and it's all rural. So now you get this beautiful high crane shot of this lone car coming into the insane asylum, pulling up to the loop with the iron gates, and now you can sew those two shots together. They're two completely different locations, but when it's all cut together, it looks like we created an insane asylum out in the middle of nowhere in Winnipeg. And so yeah, we shot out there for I think 2 nights, and that was the night we got snowed in, or we had
Oh
to call
no.
we had to call a wrap because we were getting 30 centimeters. Producers came in and said, "Sorry guys, we got to pull the plug. The crew need to start heading home because the roads were icing up." So I remember that night. Yeah, that was crazy. And it was so cold, the animatronics were freezing up on the doll in the back seat of the car. I remember that.
Oh man.
They had hair dryers on the motors trying to warm it up and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
I when my friend told me that you guys filmed in Okamic Marsh, I watched and I just could not piece together. So that just brings back the magic of editing that you talked about before.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Jimmy Jimmy is a friend of Martin, who's a friend of mine, which makes Jimmy as good a friend of mine now as Martin is. But Jimmy's like the horror infusion I didn't have in my life. So when he came back on the
Oh,
show,
cool.
so
Yeah.
like like I have slowly but surely started to incorporate more horror into my diet, and I owe it all to this man. So that, and as when I looked through your resume, I was like, Chucky, oh, we're gonna have some fun with Chucky. I want to ask, did anybody play poker with Tilly?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know who, but I think I heard rumors of that happening somehow. Yeah.
Did she take all their money? I hope she did.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think everyone was aware of her prowess in that regard and was smart enough to say no. But I think there was. I think Don and Tilly offered up to the. I think there was a guys. We could do a little fun game of poker, and a lot of people are like, no thanks. It's Tilly. She's too good.
I'm good. I'm good. Let her go to the casino. Let her take the government's money.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god.
All right. So Jimmy's from Selkirk, and Burden of Truth is one great Canadian crime drama or lawyer. Yeah, crime drama, I guess. Yeah, just not from the sense of like your typical crime drama. It's small town. It's rural. It's what's the, I can emote to it, like I understand it. I there's a little bit of small town in me, and when I see it, it just makes my heart grow 2 sizes bigger, because it's not a place that would traditionally be interesting in network television, right? Like small town lawyer problems is not by definition attractive. And then you watch Kruk and Mooney, and I only got to see the first season because I just got sucked in. There's just too much to watch. There's just too much to fucking watch. And but the first season, for those who don't know, I remember it being, was it about a infection, like the water was contaminated in the town, and this Kristin Kruk's character comes to the small town. Her dad owns a law firm, and she kind of finds out that dad's law firm is representing someone in the town, and she takes on the case, and then it's dad versus daughter, and then she meets Peter. And is that kind of a shitty synopsis?
Yeah. I mean, they basically sent her in from the big city of Toronto. This big firm was just there to go make a settlement deal and walk away, and it was the attraction of that something's not quite right in the town that tweaks her character to say, well, I'm not going to leave quite yet. I think something else is up. And she starts digging. She reconnects with her old high school friend, Peter Mooney's character, and then together they sleuth and figure out there is something way bigger going on here. And they start unraveling the clues. And it's about the girls in the high school that start getting sick. And they realize it came from the polluting of the steel factory that
That's
gets
it.
unraveled. So it's yeah. I mean, you're right. The location wouldn't normally draw anything. It was the characters and the very smart storylines that were so potent that you couldn't stop watching it, because it drew you in. You're like,
Yeah.
how is that tied to that? Oh my god! Like it just every episode you kept getting some very big dramatic pull that made you want to watch it, and then all of a sudden you started to actually care about and feel for that small town, because it was big people trying to crush a small town, but the small town started to get some grit because of her character and Peter's character, and starting to actually fight back. It was sort of like a David Goliath feel in some ways, where the small town gets to fight back because the big lawyer shows up and knows how to do it. So it was cool.
Yeah, no, it's fantastically shot, and it's fun to see Selkirk as Millwood. Is Millwood based on Millwood, Manitoba? Is that what Selkirk's playing as?
We had so many conversations about that. I've actually don't remember how we ended up. It might have been a fictitious place.
Okay.
In the writers' minds, I can't remember, and we just said we'll play Selkirk as Millwood, and they wrote in that the distance is sort of cohesive to the story between Winnipeg and Millwood is like 90 minutes. It kept changing for our story purposes, going, okay, it's 2 hours away from Winnipeg, but then they had to fly in, and then all of a sudden they're there. So it's 30 minutes. No, it needs to be an hour. It always changed for us, so it was pretty funny.
And what unit are you on for Burden?
So I was always on. I was always on main unit as the first. My contract with that show was always like I'd first AD two episodes with one director, and then I got to direct 2 episodes.
And which two episodes yours?
So in season 1, I did episodes 7 and 8.
Okay. off the top of my head, I can't remember the storyline because, like I said, there's so much. But what was it like to have that show all to your own for 2 episodes?
Oh, that was great. And selfishly, what worked for me was that I got to be the first assistant director for like a block before I directed, which is actually good for me because it gave me a chance to see how the show was getting set up and how the other directors were setting up. Like when you start a new show, you're establishing new looks, new shooting style, new relationships with the characters so I got to see that develop for the first 6 episodes before I got to direct. So in a way, a lot of the groundwork was being laid, so it was a little easier for me to kind of get my teeth wet with it. So that was a good thing. And by then, cast knew me well and trusted me because I was on the floor with them for months at a time, and the producers got to know and trust me and what I did as an AD, and so it was good. It was I mean, it was a dream to be able to do that. I mean, getting to work with Peter again and to work with Kristin and watching their chemistry come to life was also magic. It's just you couldn't ask for a better duo to take on this show.
You really
And
couldn't.
Dion, what's
You.
that?
I was just gonna say you really couldn't. What I remember, like I remember the synopsis and everything, but the finer details are unfortunately lost on me, which I will refresh because I do want to. You're in the final season. Final season's airing right now, right? Or
Yeah,
is it finished?
yeah.
Okay.
No, it's still airing. I think it's tonight. It's airing episode 5. Yeah, I think it's episode 5 tonight, which I was the first AD for. This season 4, I directed the first 2 episodes,
Okay.
and then I was the first AD for episodes 5 and 6. So tonight I get to see our work there. And the director that I was the AD for was Madison Thomas, local Indigenous director here.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was really great to watch and be her sidekick through her first network television experience as well. So that was cool.
Is
So
that? I guess that must be enjoyable for you to be like, I was once there before, and now I get Maury Chaykin winking at me. So, you know,
yeah. Well, and you know how they feel. Like she does a lot of independent. Has done a lot of independent, features and docs and short film stuff. So that's great. So she has a lot of writing experience. In fact, she was in the writers' room for season 4 of Burden. So she knew a lot of the story arc, in the characters, even better than me because I was on the floor ADing. I wasn't in a writer's room.
yeah.
So her contribution to the show is also coming from the fact that she knows where every character is supposed to be at what point. So that was a treasure to watch her work with the actors that way. So
Madison, this is a direct shout out. You're more than welcome
yeah,
to come on the show. And
should try and get her on. I'll poke the bear for you and tell her to get on that.
please do. That's
Again, it's like a nice, fantastic local Indigenous director. Be great to have her come on your show.
yeah. No, I door is wide open to everybody in this province who works in film. So,
Cool.
the story arc changes the show centers around Kristin and Peter's characters, but the problems they're facing, does it go through they changes every season, right? Like there's a new problem. Okay, so but their relationship and their theme. I mean, her coming off Smallville. I didn't watch a lot of Smallville, but I watched enough to be like, yeah, okay. But watching her in this, what I remember most about the first season is their chemistry and being like, you know what? I I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of lawyer shows out there, but the reason I'm sticking around for this one isn't because of that. It's because of these actors playing these characters, and this underlying story of small town family and old high school flame, and just those really like relatable shit that we all like, right? That's baked into it, and that was like, okay, cool. I'm in. I'm invested.
I got that a lot, even from family and friend members that aren't just watching the show because I'm involved. When they got to watch the first 2 episodes, they're like, "I'm in," and they're like, "This is a great show," and they were hooked. And so like, it's fantastic to know that they're. And we would meet people from Selkirk that we use as locations. They're like, "Oh my God, are you guys coming?" Like, we'll start scouting in the next spring for a new season, and you get everybody that's walking down the streets of Selkirk that know our crew, that know me, know Kyle Irving, know our designer and stuff, and they know when we start walking around the streets, we're scouting, and they're like, "Oh my God, tell me you're bringing back Burden." And you have like legitimate fans in Selkirk and all over Winnipeg that love the show, and it's that's a nice, that's a really nice feeling to know that you have local support that are there to help when we need it. So
That's kind of like the Jaws story of how Bruce the shark didn't work at first, and it took forever to get Bruce on camera. So they ended up sticking around the town, and then the lady who smacks Brody is just a lady in town. But they gave her a role because they got to know her, right? And after that scene, she was like, "I'm so sorry," and Schneider's like, "That's fine, like whatever. This is Jaws. Pull your pants up, lady." And I don't. He didn't say that, but the point is that you end up becoming friends with the people who live there because you're using the people who live there's place to put on screen. So, did that make shooting it like? Did that make that extra special than just showing up on a location and then using it like repeat business? Probably made it a little bit more homey.
yeah, I mean, again, a shout out to the entire community of all of Manitoba, because we for all filmmaking we shoot everywhere, and our purpose and our goal is to maintain excellent relationships with the people that allow us to come into their homes, to use their businesses, to shoot and make movies. Without them, we can't do what we love to do. So treating them with respect and communication to say, this is what we would like to do. Are you okay with it? We want to put a camera on the roof of your house. Whatever it may be. It's an open communication, and hats off to our producers on the show that have maintained a great communication line with like the mayor of Selkirk. I know Kyle and Tyson Karen and all those guys that put all the producers that put the effort into making an effort to communicate with the mayor of Selkirk and the other that just all the businesses that we affected. When you
Totally.
shoot on the main street of Manitoba Avenue, you're affecting all those businesses. So either A, you're going to prevent them from making their daily, money coming in because we're stopping people from going in because we're shooting a shot,
Yeah.
offering them, we'll give you a shout out, we'll put your name in the movie or whatever the deal is. But having that communication is key to getting people to say yes to things, as opposed to abusing that, saying we're making a movie, you can't, like we're God and we can do whatever we want, so get back. It's like you can't have that attitude and burn a location. You'll never get to come back again. And we need to treat the locations and people of Manitoba with respect and openness so that we can get to film, where we would like to, so.
Yeah, no, I just being a movie nerd, I didn't even think of it that way. But yeah, you use yeah, it's the you burn a location, and like yeah, they would never let you back. And I think that's why Manitoba, like it's becoming a thing where it's like come to Manitoba, and the people of Manitoba, not only the film professionals here, but the people of Manitoba are like, yeah, we like that you come here, right? They like that their property was used, or they're in the background. Like
Oh,
it's a
sure,
cool.
yeah.
Like, we're all fans here, right? Like it's not too and you know
Oh,
what?
true.
Whatever. There's something to be said about the big Toronto, Vancouver, L.A., New York, London. To be said about a metropolitan city that can carry the studio sizes that they have. But here it's niche and it's special and it's earned and it's respected. And yeah, you guys you're hard in the paint.
Film Selkirk. Everybody needs to film Selkirk. I love it. What I love most about Burden of Truth is that you guys don't just shoot Manitoba Avenue. You know what I mean? Like a lot of movies come in and they will just use that street, and I get why, because it has a beautiful small town kind of feel to it, right? Like I
Yep.
remember maybe a couple years ago, Sean Penn was in town shooting a movie, and he was just using the old Gary Theater,
Hmm.
and it was incredible to have him in town and to physically see him in person. And I know the people in town love Burden of Truth and love being able to be a part of something that's shown on TV, and they just love to be a part of it.
Well, Jimmy, there is not a alley, street, or building that I have not walked past scouting in all of Selkirk. Not just for Burden, but for many other shows too. But Burden specifically because we shoot Manitoba, or sorry, Winnipeg, and then we shoot Selkirk. Like that's pretty much it. We do have a few exceptions to that, but so we have literally had to prevent our trucks from moving too much because that's very expensive and time consuming. We're trying to camp out and then just like push our carts down the street to find different looks. And so we have literally walked every darn street, and we know every street, every house, every business, every possible angle to scout. And so all of us unburdened, no Selkirk, as if we grew up there.
Right on. Happy to hear it.
Um, what's it like directing Kristin and Peter? I mean, Peter's. I told you before this that I like, and this is not a humble brag because we went to the same school. We did not really know each other, but I just
Oh,
knew,
did you really?
yeah, we did. And I remember when he did his first commercial and he came back and everybody was giving him flack.
Yeah.
Peter, if you're listening to this, I sent you an email to your agent asking you to come on the show, but you're busy and I respect that. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was a cute commercial that he did, but watching him now, I'm like, you charming devil. When did you grow up to be so fucking handsome and good?
Yeah, I mean, working with the two of them is just, it's just a dream because they can give you everything you want. I mean, look, on these kind of a shows, like they will know your character better than I will, right? Like I see things from, I have to, you have to keep so many things in your head as you're going through. Obviously, you got to keep track of everyone's character arcs, but especially Peter and Kristen, them being producers, they're part of the writing room before they even get here. So they read the preliminary script, so they know what's coming, and so they are part of that process. They know their damn characters. They know when they're going to want to do something. So directing them, it's more of a letting them kind of have the opportunity to do opportunities that they want to try, right? They know what they're going to do. You can't ask them to do something that's out of character. You can't just say try this way, and it's like, because they'll tell you like my character would never do that. So but me being on the show, you know, that you kind of watch how they work, you watch how they are, and really, they're just wonderful to sit back. Sometimes you just get like, you just sit there and watch them, and you're like, "Oh right, cut. Sorry, I just got really drawn into it," because they know each other so well, and you give them, 3 takes or something, and they'll give you something different every time, and it's wonderful to watch. And the odd time, you just have to give them little notes, and it's mostly because of the camera's doing something a little different on this take. So just be aware we're moving over here so that you can get that moment you want to sell on that. So it's great. It's I don't want to say it's easy. It's not about whether it's easy or hard. They make it fun for you to direct with them because it's very collaborative, and they're even in the stressful environment. This season 4 we had to shoot in COVID times with masks and shields, and this process of cleaning your hands and the surface where the creative process got interrupted so much because of the guidelines we had to do. But yet we all still found a way to laugh and have a good time. When we cut, there's Peter making a joke again and relaxing everybody. Peter's job is to it seems to relax the crew with a joke. So I mean, I met him in 2006 when he was on Falcon Beach. So when he was like, I think the local doctor. I was like, what are you, 23? You're a doctor already?
Was on that show.
Yeah, but they're wonderful people. They are got hearts of gold. They care about everybody so much, and they work their asses off because you couldn't do a crunch schedule like this show without people like that. That just they come to work so prepared, ready with a great attitude, and they just kick ass every day. They go home, they come back and do it all over again for 3 months. I mean, you can tell that they get where they are going in their careers because of the type of hard work that they pull off and their talent. They're just wonderful to watch.
Yeah, he was also he was great on Ricky Blue too. I mean, like,
Oh yeah, Ricky Blue too, of course.
like I was like, okay, man. I'm glad this worked out for you. I'm glad. It's great to watch you and her. I mean, yeah, she's badass on screen.
She is badass. Yeah.
She can pull badass out pretty quick. Another item of note: my friend Megan Sodomsky's twins were in one of the episodes.
Oh my God, that was your friend. She had the twins. Yeah.
Yeah, she had the twins. Yeah, and I saw a shot of it.
They were amazing. My God, working with those babies, like working with babies is always a scary thing. When you read it in the script, you're like, oh my God, we have to have a baby on set. But honestly, her kids were just. I don't want to say that they did everything that you want to do, but they did everything we needed them to do. It was incredible. Dude, Megan, we need your baby to. I know this is a weird request, but can your baby be cranky when she comes in the door? Oh, that's easy, no problem. Roll camera, or we need your kid to laugh, no problem. I could just, it was amazing. And that kid,
Yep.
and when you watch season 4 and you watch this kid, that kid's on screen a lot, and it's because we didn't have to do a lot of cheating with the baby. Like, yes, you have to use dolls sometimes to hear that, but that baby was so good and kind of was able to give us what we needed. We they were on set quite a bit, so it was great.
Yeah, she drives it. She runs a tight ship. Megan is Megan. I'm not surprised at all whatsoever. That
She was just a lovely person. Oh my
oh,
god.
she's mother to us all in our group. She knows
Oh.
it. But then she had 2 twins, and we were like, shit, all of us lost out now. Now whenever like we go camping, and she'd feed all of us, right?
Right.
And now she's got these lovely
Yeah.
twins that she gave birth to. So I babies on set. I could only because it's like, "Wah!" Ruin that take, right? You gotta keep rolling. Just give it a couple seconds. No, I'm so glad Burden of Truth did what it did. What did they like before we move on? Was it always planned for 4 seasons, or did they just go, we've told this story, we feel we've hit the mark, and put it to bed?
No, it's sometimes shows like that, they're never like, oh, you're getting a guaranteed 4 seasons.
Okay.
It's every season you wait and see how the numbers do, and then you wait for the bosses to call you and say, we got greenlit for a season 2. Let's go. Writers' room have hit the floor, and we're coming in the summer again. So every year it was a wait and find out. But after shooting season 1, you can't guarantee this, but all of us felt so good about what happened, as far as shooting wise. We were convinced that if we got greenlit for a season 2, it wouldn't have been a big surprise. Same thing for season 3. Season 2, I think, was even better than season 1. We really established a kind of a different look for the show, not in a not in a big drastic way. Just it sort of really found its legs, I would say. So yeah, every season was just sort of a wait and see what happens. So
I can't wait to go back to it. I think I'm gonna when I step outside of here, I'm gonna try to convince the Shauna to watch it with me. She's not watching anything with me. I feel like I was listening to Kevin Smith the other day, and he was talking about how like his wife finally wants to sit down and watch WandaVision with him, and I'm like, I'm almost. I just got to find the right Marvel movie. She loved Infinity War. She loved Thor Ragnarok. I think I don't know. Anyway, I'm digressing. No. So yeah, anybody, if you haven't watched Burden of Truth, be better than me and watch all of it. It's all ready to go. It's on CBC Gem, is it not?
Yep. Yeah, you can binge watch it. So
Yeah, binge watching the new thing.
the new norm. Yeah.
How does that make you like when you I guess coming from a director's perspective, not something I never even thought of, like do you want everybody to binge what you want, or do you like knowing that it drops, and like the old model of dropping by week and building the suspense and the tension and the desire, or are you like fuck it, binge it?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it that way. It's funny, as an audience member, I prefer binge watching because it just sort of helps me enjoy an entire experience a little more cohesively, because I hate losing little nuggets in between a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But as a director, I would say, man, maybe the old style is a little better because you do get to hold on to the audience's like, I want to know what's coming, and that anticipation helps with the viewing experience. Sometimes I always found, like as a kid, oh my God, Raiders of the Lost Ark is coming in theaters in 3 months, and just, sometimes it's just that is what makes watching something special. And maybe binge watching takes a little bit of that away, that specialness. But I don't know. It may depend on the type of show that you're watching.
True, touche to that. Yeah, I find some stuff I'm just like need it all. Put it into my veins, shoot it into my brain, and then
Some of them require some thinking. Like I remember
Yeah.
American Horror Story. I liked the break, and I didn't binge watch that on purpose because I wanted to soak in it because it was so cool and so different that I wanted to think about it for a few days after, and then I was ready for the next one. So there's some shows that I kind of prefer the break.
True. Okay. I want to get to more about you, so I'm going to skip the stuff on something and save it for a comeback episode because me and Jimmy clearly dig you, sir. So it's like they say, don't give it all away in the first act. So Maybe they don't say that. I want to go to Run before we move on to what you think on film and stuff like that. So you've mentioned American Horror Story a couple times. I take it you're a fan of Sarah Paulson?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So what's that
absolutely.
like now being because obviously as soon as we started chatting, I was like, you're a film nerd at heart. Like you started this whole episode with us with I love watching and being lost in somebody else's dream.
Yep.
And then you get to fanboy out on a show, but then get to work with the person who you got to fanboy out over. So I mean, what's that do, man? Like, how were you nervous at all? Because that would fuck me up if I was you.
Well, my role on Run was I was the first AD on main unit just for a few days because I had to cover my buddy who was firsting it.
Okay.
I can't remember what happened. I think he either got sick or something, so I ended up getting called in to do that. But at that time, they were looking for a second unit director to do a bunch of their second unit, so I got to do the second unit directing. So I was around the main cast for a good couple of weeks, running the main unit floor, but also because when you're doing second unit, you have to come to set and meet with the main unit director and have meetings about what their intent is, and I have to carry that vision into the second unit work. So I was around Sarah Paulson and the other actress quite a bit just because I had to hang out
Kira,
on set and wait for
Kira Allen,
opportunities.
right? That's
Kira Allen, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it's great, but I got to tell you, like, I was taught very early on in my career that you don't go and get all fan based up in actors. Like I respect actors that I really like when I meet them and they are somebody I've always wanted to meet. Uh, it's just a respect level that in the industry that I respect what you do, but I'm not going to fan all over you. It's not a cool thing to do. And if you get noticed doing that, you ain't going to survive in the industry long because it's just not something you do. So um, I don't get, what's it called? When you just get a big actor on set, um, I kind of take it as everyone's doing a job here. Don't let your oh my god I've always wanted to meet you get in the way of your professionalism because they can see that from a mile away and they will lose respect for you and you will not get out of them what you need. For instance, Samuel L. Jackson came here and I was the first AD on a feature film he was here with, right? I was very nervous the first 2 days with him, and it was because of how he carried himself on set. He has a stature about him. He's kind of the runs the ship in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember losing some sleep over going, God, why has this guy got me all nervous? I know what I'm doing. I've worked with big actors before. And I just gave myself a pep talk and said, you know what? You're not going to let him make you feel nervous any longer. You're just going to talk to him like a human being and just get the shit done. Do your job. And once I convinced myself, I went up to him the next day and he came in doing his thing and he just has a wall up on him, right? He's not necessarily a very playful guy. He just comes in, does his shit and he leaves. But and we all respect that from him and he's a very very talented actor, of course. And once I kind of broke through that, I realized I don't need to get all starry-eyed about him. He is a cool actor to work with. I have a job to do. I still have to help the producer and director get this movie in on schedule. So I do that with everybody I meet, whether they're a very established actor or not. Meeting Sarah Paulson was extremely cool because I watched American Horror Story and some other pieces that she did,
Yeah.
and I could see the talent that she has, and it was wonderful to watch. And there's a talent a lot of us industry professionals have. It's knowing how to appreciate it quietly in our heads and realize how special that moment is, but you don't ever voice it. You don't ever get starstruck and like, oh, can I get my picture with you? It's like you don't, they just don't appreciate that. But I in my head, I was like, this is cool. I'm getting to be in the same room watching her pull the talent off. So it was cool.
That's where I was coming from that
Yeah.
perspective was being a fan and then getting I guess the proper term is to nerd out on her talent,
Yep.
right? To
Yep.
to sit there and just be, man, okay, I'm watching it in person and it's even that much cooler, right? Because
Yeah.
she
And
is
and on the drive home after watching her, that's when you get to nerd out. You're like, dude,
yeah, yeah.
she was very cool. Like, look at the choices that she made that day. Which just, you're just like, I never would have thought of that. And so but that becomes a teaching tool as me as watching as a director's eye, even though I wasn't directing her.
Yeah.
I was the assistant director, but I always take notes. Doesn't matter I take notes on what her choices were, and I was like, I got to remember that, sometime down the line that might become useful. So it's sort of like using their talents as like going to school for filmmaking.
Yeah, no, it's your toolbox, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
one day you're gonna need it, and it's better to be like, hey, man, you know what? I got this key.
Yeah.
Nobody else does. So
Yeah.
yeah. Kira Miller, really great to see a production be like, oh, we need a girl in a wheelchair. Let's cast a girl in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember because my buddy who was the first AD on it, before I had to take over for like a week and a half or whatever it was. Yeah, he told me that's like, yeah. I said, wow, what's that like? Because I don't think I've had to really do that before and have basically a lead character, you know, go through that and think about all the production logistics to make her feel comfortable and welcome
Yeah.
have all the same opportunities that everybody else did. And it was again, it's like every movie. We all have different challenges to overcome to make the movie happen. We talk to her about what she needs, what she wants, and we made it happen. And she was lovely. I don't think she had ever done anything before this. I
I
think
think
she
you're
was
right about that.
relatively new, or at least, I think making a movie in that size of a role is was one of her firsts.
Oh,
So
she was great. I was glued to her the whole time, and finding out after,
yeah,
it's great to see that it's like, okay, there's an attempt being made to do that and to look down that road first instead of like, what name can we get? Okay, no, let's find somebody who, like,
that was a cool decision by the producers for sure.
yes, very much so. Yeah, no, we're a huge American Horror Story family over here, and Ratchet on Netflix. I just the guys know, like, I'm not gonna be all like I was the fucking shit over it. Like, I got to interview Kevin Smith for Skip the Dishes,
Oh, sweet.
and I like locked myself into a zone because I was like, I was paid to do this. Um, Somebody vouched for me and put their job on the line, and I wasn't going to be like, yeah, it's me and the Kevin Smith minute. It was like, it was a thing. And I still got to fucking talk to him about the shit I wanted to talk to him about. And it was my best friend handing me questions to do it, which was even funnier because he tried to fuck me. But like, he was like, he's like, ask him about Jersey Girl. Ask him. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not asking him about Jersey Girl. So anyway, but in that moment, I was like, and I didn't think I could do it, but I gave myself a little bit of a pep talk and was like, just talk to a motherfucker, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't fan out. That's not what you're here for.
They'll respond better that way, I find too, right? Like they'll engage with you a little more if they see you coming from that side of it. I find that they open up a little more to you. You
Yeah,
just treat them like a normal everyday person. You gain a little more respect from them instantly when you approach it that way. I find. Did you find that or?
I 100% found that because I was like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be really fucking weird if that, like, I would be weirded out if somebody did that to me. No matter,
Yeah.
like, so I'm
Yeah.
like, why do that? Like, why? There's just take a minute, take a breath, like you said, walk off set, take a breath, and do it. And I was more impressed with myself that I could remain in a zone. It had nothing to do with, hey, I fucking talked to Kevin Smith. It was that I could do a thing and then come out of that thing and do that thing for a length of time. I thought that was really interesting. And
That's cool. Yeah.
I guess
Very cool.
that do that enough times and it's your day job, like you.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I do get starstruck. I've shook hands with Justin Timberlake back in Vancouver when he was working on a second unit thing with LL Cool J, and
Wow.
it was back in like 2002, and I remember they were only there for a few days, and I was going to be the second AD on this reshoot, and I just remember going, holy. After I shook his hand, and said, "Welcome to set, Justin. If you guys want to follow us this way, we'll get you all set up with your." They were doing a gunfight or something, and just acted all professional. But I remember walking away going, "Holy shit! I just shook Justin Timberlake's hand," and because back then that was like the top of his thing, and I remember working with Christian Slater on a movie, and he's like the nicest guy in the world. But back in the day when he was famous for like Robin Hood, with Kevin Costner and all that, and
Yeah, yeah.
just meeting him, and there's some big ticket names that you get the opportunity to be near, and you just think how lucky am I that I get to get to do something that's this interesting and get to meet some really cool people, and then find out that they're actually wonderful people and nice people, not just great actors, but genuinely nice people as well. So it's really kind of I gotta remember how lucky I get to be sometimes to have that. So
Yeah, from where I'm sitting, you're Charlie, and you have the golden ticket.
yeah, right. Oh, well, thanks.
You're very welcome, sir. It's like you got the Channel Zero stuff that we could have talked about. Like there's so much there, and No End House. Well, fuck it, No End House, the one.
Yeah, because I got a couple of stories about
Yeah,
that show.
yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you or Jimmy.
That's right. We're locked.
So okay, his name's eluding me, but he was in Zodiac, and so he was Drew Carey. What's his name? I'm so sorry.
Are you thinking about an actor that was in it?
The actor that was in it, the one who played the father who died.
Oh,
This is horrible.
John Carroll Lynch.
John Carroll freaking Lynch. Thank you very much, Doug. I'm correct that he was in No End House, right?
Yep, that's him.
Okay, all right, good. Yep. There's a moment of silence there.
Well, there was 4 seasons. I worked on 3 of them, but John Carroll, that was my favorite season. Was definitely that one.
Okay, so what 3 we'll start there. What 3 seasons did you work on?
I did the first one, which was the puppet show, right?
Candle Cove.
Candle Cove. I did No End House, which was season 2.
Yep.
Season 3 was Butcher Block. I was not doing that because I was doing Burden of Truth season 1 at that time.
Yep.
And then I did season 4, which was the Dream Door.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And
but No End House was one of the biggest logistical challenge productions I've ever been part of.
and like in an enjoyable way, in a stressful way, in a creative way, like what just
stressful in the beginning, but as we pulled things off, you're like, whoa, this is something we've never tried before. And obviously you've watched season 2 or some of it enough to get a grasp.
Enough to understand that I love the premise of the never-ending rooms and not knowing what plane of reality you're on, and there was it was messing with a lot of different ideas, and again, ADD, just this is shinier, and then I just forget and don't come back to it. But I did all of Candle Cove, pretty much almost through all of 2, but I didn't watch Butcher or Dream Door yet, but I want to more now because Heather Neal, who you worked with, costume designer, she relaunched my love into it. Just talking about.
I was gonna say I listened to that episode and it made me go back, especially when she was talking about that the French guy that came in and did the clay stuff, which is whatever. But part of the big challenges on that show was they entered a different reality. So imagine like in a suburbia, they would walk down the streets of this suburbia and there'd be nobody around.
Yes.
And it wasn't just one scene.
It was all the time.
15% of the movie was them walking through bare streets of nothing. And we're like, how the are we going to empty out blocks and blocks and streets of people and their cars? And not only that, but when you're in that world, no other flowers can exist except the white orchids. So a location department had to literally contact hundreds of homes and ask them, hey, so for these few days, we need you to put your car in your garage or get rid of it completely. Our greens department wants to come in and get rid of all your nice roses and put in white orchids. You can't come out of your house for like 3 days. Well, I mean, they can go at the back. But I mean, to create the vastness of this world was an insane overtaking of, imagine how many people had to knock on doors to get an entire street cleared and then do that 18 times. And not only that, but the No End House, it was about this weird house that would show up in different places.
Yes.
We constructed a house that showed up in physically 3 different spots in Winnipeg. So we moved a house. I mean, not all of it. We had some tricks up our sleeve, but we basically had it on the back of a semi and put it at the end of a cul-de-sac, and then shot all of our scenes with it there, and then we moved it to a farmer's field over at Boonstra Farms, and shot in their corn maze, and then moved it from there. We moved it somewhere else. I mean, those kind of logistics were like, I'm like, how are we going to move a house, guys? And they're like, like, give us a week, we'll come back with you. So we figured big things out, and it was very cool. But I also had the hardest week of my entire career shooting in that cornfield because it was 5 nights. It was all night work, and it rained. It was October 5th to 10th that year, and it rained. And as you know, there's nothing colder than 12 hours in pissing rain in October 5th when it's like +5. It
Yeah.
was colder than hell. All our lifts got stuck in the muds out there and tore up all the, it just was insanely grueling for everybody. But after the 5 nights, when the sun was coming up on that Saturday morning at 6 a.m., or 7 a.m., and you saw the blue sky starting to change, and I knew that we were going to be done with that location. A big smile came on my face. I was like, guys, we made it. And everyone was just covered in mud and sweat, and just like, it felt like we went to war for that last week. So, but very cool.
It
Very
sounds like
cool.
your Game of Thrones, that one battle they shot in the final season where it was like 22 days of night shoots and someone forgot to tell the lighting department to turn the lights on. Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And the other cool story about that is, and it comes full circle in my entire career, is that um, back in college, I met in film school. I met my now best friend Aaron Shemansky, and back in film school, he was a scuba diver. His dad taught him to scuba dive, and so he learned how to do underwater camera work. So one of our student films had underwater footage, and our college was like, "Holy shit! No students have ever shot underwater before." I'm like, "Well, my buddy's he's a scuba diver," so we were getting some pretty cool shots. Anyway, he after graduation, he became like a doc shooter. He gets to go all over the world and shoot underwater IMAX and stuff. Like,
Jesus.
he's an incredible career that way. Um, this show that we're talking about, No End House, had a whole pool sequence and the girl going in her pool. We had to shoot underwater. My producer's like, I said, "How you doing today? You look a little stressed." He goes, "Yeah, we need an underwater cinematographer guy, someone that could shoot underwater." And I go, "My buddy in Toronto, fly him out here." So
Yeah.
I got to work with my best friend. We've been separated for years, him living in Toronto, me here. We got to pay him to fly him out here, and he shot all our underwater stuff. So it was really cool to be reunited in a professional world with my friend that I've known for, 25 years. So that was pretty cool.
That yeah, because she goes for a swim, I believe, after everything kind
Yep.
of happens to her.
Yep.
And
Yeah, she jumps in her backyard pool, and as she does it, it changes the plane of reality, and all of a sudden she's in an Olympic-sized pool. It's supposed to be a void. It's supposed to be an underwater void.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, very cool underwater stuff.
Um, what's is it a lot of fun to make creepy pastas from Reddit come to life?
Oh my
Like,
God, yes. Because horror is like horror is like one of my favorite genres. Absolutely, it's probably tied with my epic adventure and sci-fi love. It's just I was raised on Friday the 13th and Prom Night and all the old 70s and 80s horror movies. So I love this stuff because, again, this is total dreaming. This is you being in someone else's you know nightmare, and it's exciting to me because I love that stuff. And watching them create the characters that had to be created for this is just amazing. It's just watching them go from paper to a concept art to a storyboard to the Heather creating the costume for it and then shooting with it, and you're like watching the evolution of a character that came out of someone's mind is so much fun. And it makes me smile going to work every day thinking about that kind of stuff.
yeah, no, I'm sitting back watching it, and like, I mean, the premise of it being like a traveling horror show, I thought
Yeah.
was super smart. Like the way you guys made that season look like when they're walking through town, you made a really good job of changing the reality of like to change the reality of that they were on. The color scheme changed, the tone changed. Like it was like a deader version of where they once came from, and the balls to go through all 7 rooms of the house. I mean, there was
Yeah,
just so many, and like
that was cool.
changing the rooms around, and like it was like one of those, it was like a Rubik's cube.
Well, and think about it this way too. Like when we're all of us department heads are trying to figure it out conceptually. The it has to make sense to us before we can actually figure out how to shoot it.
Yeah.
So if you're like, so okay, so they go through one door and then why isn't the other characters with that person? Oh, because every door you go through, it eliminates one other character. They go through a different reality every time you go through a new room. So it starts with 7 or 6, I can't remember, and then by the time you get through the 6 doors, you end up with one, and that is your thing. And I was like, yeah, but how do we physically tell that story? How do we put the camera? We have to actually make sense of it
Yeah.
before we hit the floor, because you can't figure it out on the day. You actually have that stuff. You actually have to like storyboard, or at least you have to logistically lay out the map. So we have to make it make sense first before we can pull the trigger. And that's the fun. It's sort of like being in an escape room as a production and trying to figure out the pitfalls and the wins out of it to make it, because we got to make sure the audience believes it, right? So
Agreed, sir. I mean, yeah, you can't really go into it without some sort of recipe in mind. I want to switch back to you for a second because hang on. Okay, sorry, I was getting juice. My mouth was getting really caught for a second there. So
it looked like I got fruit flies in here. I gotta get rid of the fruit flies.
no, just Fresco.
No, that's just my house. Okay, honey, we got a problem.
Get rid of them citrus.
Get rid of those citrus drinks. Jesus.
So, now that you've established yourself as a fantastic fucking director, and I mean, I'm so glad that I learned more about how all of the units combine. I mean, it's there's too much focus on the fact that there's just the director and the cinematographer. Like there's so much more to it, and I'm glad that you got to educate me and Jimmy on those differences and where you've worked as one and where you've worked as another. Because the second unit, it, like I said it earlier, it's you're the guy sewing everything together, making sure it's seamless, and then at the same time, the primary director is in control of it all. So it's very complimentary, I guess, is what I'm saying about my education today.
Well, to clarify too, the second unit director is hired by the main unit director. At least they have a say in who it is, because they want to trust that that person can carry their vision. Excuse me. To carry the vision into the film, because they're being trusted to go off and shoot. So you need to know what the style is, because you're going to get your own cameraman or camerawoman. You're going to have a cinematographer with you that's also going to they have to shoot the same style. So like for Run, I did all the aerial work, the drone work in the movie. I also did a ton of their inserts. So second unit can mean anything from establishing shots with extras and cars. It can be the all the special effects shots. It
Yeah.
can be visual effects elements, like we need fire elements to put into the main unit stuff. It can be the drone shots, like wide establishers of the car driving along the highway by itself through the woods. Like all those drone shots was a unit I did for a couple of days. Um, it can also mean all the stunt work. You get all the stunt doubles in the cars, and you go off and do some big action sequences, because you don't want to tie up all the main unit actors with stuff that takes like 8 hours to set up for like 30 seconds, right? So second unit is really all the little bits and pieces that you're right that sew up all the things throughout the film that the main unit director is looking for. So lots of meetings and lots of discussions about what shots to get, what we can offer, and then you go out with their vision in mind.
Speaking of vision, no, I'm not going to go down to WandaVision. Hold on. It was like, no. Okay, so I want to go back to Doug the person here. So 3 films you think everybody should see?
Oh man, I thought about this for a long time. I've been asked this so many times, and I just keep changing my answer. So um, I'm gonna say Silence of the Lambs.
Clarice.
Yep. Ocean's 11.
Yes.
And I couldn't just do 3. So there was that.
Go Five.
Fight Club, because I'm a huge Fincher fan, and I'm in love with Nolan's Inception. It's just that to me is, I feel like I dreamt that movie when I was in grade 7, and I'm mad that he thought of it before me, because one of my public speaking one of my public speeches I did in grade 7 and 8 was about dreams and about how you can get lost down a rabbit hole. And I swear to God, when this movie came out, I was like, damn it, I just didn't write it and do it before them. Anyway, but those are some just must-haves from my end.
Shauna has I'm pretty fucking sure I'm living with a fucking mutant or a Marvel superhero because she has this ability to. She said to me the other day, I had a dream and then I woke up from that dream and I was in another dream and I was like, oh, Inception. Like what half the fucking planet wants to be able to do, and there's a very small select few of people who can lucid fucking dream. You mean that? She's like, yeah. I'm like, how many times do you do that a week? 3. I'm like, what? Why the fuck are you awake? Like, if you could do that, and I mean, being a filmmaker, I guess too, Doug. Like, watching a movie, watching a director like change the world from like physical changes and spinning rooms and stuff. Like Inception is a master class in like alternating your perception and time and so many things.
Yeah. Well, it's and look, I've been very good at, even though I've been in the industry, like, well, at least the unionized industry for 24 years, I'm very good at watching a movie for the first time like a kid. Like, I'm not going to let my logistical mind take over and pick apart every scene because I won't enjoy the movie. So I literally, it's almost like I can wipe my mind clean of everything I know about film and just enjoy what's in front of me the first time.
Yeah.
Then I rewatch movies and I start finding everything and I learn. I watch the behind the scenes stuff. That's when I pick things apart and figure out and educate myself on some of that. But the first watch, every time, I'm like back when I'm 15 years old and don't know anything, don't know how they do that gag, and just because otherwise I think filmmaking would be ruined for me and I wouldn't be doing this at this point. So
Yeah, at some point, I guess you like I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sure Jimmy couldn't argue either. But like, if you lose that wow factor from a movie, like in whatever you like watching, but like if you can't be wowed for at least one watch of it, and then be like, all right, back to reality, like I feel bad for you, like like there's a medium out there that doesn't speak to you and hits you in your feelings. Anyways, what's your most embarrassing moment on set?
Okay.
Yeah.
My very first day as a trainee assistant director on La Femme Nikita, I was what's called the trailer AD, and your job is to greet the actors as they pull up from transport and say, "Hi, welcome to Nikita. And let me walk you over to your trailer, and if you tell me your breakfast order, I'll get that for you. And we'd like to see you in the hair makeup trailer in 10 minutes. Your costume will be laid in your room and momentarily." And then you just guide them through that process. And then when the first AD calls them on the walk-in, and they're like, "Doug, send that actor to set, please." And then you put them in a shuttle and they go to set. So okay, I get all that, and so this actress showed up, but got her all ready. Hour later, my first AD calls, and okay, quick little backstory to understand where we were. We were downtown Toronto. All the trucks were parked on Front Street. The sequence was a huge bank robbery, SWAT teams out everywhere. So there's extras, there's special skills extras with guns out, big cars pull up, like big sequence, right? So we need all hands on deck to help coordinate the extras, time the vehicles, get all the actors in and out safely, all that. I didn't know any of that. My job was just to get the actors ready. So Doug, send the actors to set. So I put them in a shuttle. I lit a cigarette back then. That was 1996, and I hung out with the craft service lady, and we just sit there. And I'm listening on the walkie, them having like a shitstorm of like coordination going on. I'm like, wow, they're really busy over there. And I remember my second AD goes, "Doug, where are you? We need you." I'm like, well, on channel 1 with 100 people listening. I go, where am I? Well, I'm having a cigarette on the back of the craft service truck. Like I'm having a frickin' break. Meanwhile, everybody else on the crew is working their asses off trying to put together this big action sequence where they could use my help. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And all I heard was, "Get your ass to set right now." And I'm like, shit. I didn't know, right? But that was like, so now I know you don't get a break. You just work your butt off every day. And one more embarrassing moment. It's not as fun as that. It was the first AD is in charge of breaking the scripts out in the scenes and booking the actor, not booking the actors, but basically telling the casting director and everybody that what days they work.
Okay.
Sometimes, if there's a rewrite, your job is to go through those rewrites and make sure they didn't add a character to a scene or taken one out. When you accidentally book an actor, it's going to cost production $1,500 if you accident. And that is like a fireable offense. And so your job as a first and as an AD is after, right before you put out your bookable paperwork, you double check every goddamn scene and you make sure that you haven't missed a character, you haven't missed an actor, because when you get on set and the director is, oh, let's do this, shoot this scene. Okay, great. We'll bring in the actors, and you're sitting there with the actors and you read the scene, and Alice comes out of the cabin. Alice. Doug, where's Alice? She's. Hold on. 1 second. Go to channel 2. I missed once in my many years. I missed it, and we all missed it. Even my second AD, when they made the call sheet, they're supposed to reread the scenes. I should have checked it. Somehow we all missed getting this out. She's still at the freaking hotel in this is when I was in Calgary working, and we missed it. And I was just so embarrassed because I had to tell the director, said, I don't even know what to do right now. We don't have an actor that's for the scene. He goes, but this is where I learned a trick. The director's like, don't worry. We have the front of that cabin as a build in our studio, right? I said, yes. And he said, don't worry. We'll play the scene with the other actors up here. We'll put the stand-in her clothes at the back, and she can emerge out of the cabin as soft focus. And then when we get to the studio, we'll shoot her close up calling to her sister. I was like, holy shit, you just saved my career. But I was so super embarrassed because that should never happen. But that director thought very quickly on their feet.
Yeah.
And that was the fix. And so that's a trick I will always carry with me in case we ever run into that scenario again, which that's happened before. And so there you go.
That's those are both good stories. They're both equally. I stamped those embarrassing for sure. I'm embarrassed. I love this.
It was awkward. The silence on set in front of 75 people watching me go pale as I got to have an actor booked in. That's pretty bad.
So, who do you dream of working with?
Oh God. Oh man. Well, I would love to just be a fly on the wall and watch David Fincher work. I just think his mind is so, it's just so out there that I want to know how he comes to make certain decisions. And I just love his style so much that I've admired him since, I think, Memento, and just watching how he visualizes a scene, and like Fight Club. I remember in the theater, and when you see that one frame of Brad Pitt's character, and you're like,
how'd you do that?
Did you see that? Yeah. What the hell's that doing in a movie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like, anyway, I admire that so much that I would love to tap into that thinking. And then actor-wise, this is going to be funny, but like, man, Scarlett Johansson's been on my list since the early goings on of her career. I just think she's a very talented actress, and I've just always been mesmerized watching her, and I would love to work with her and see what she's like to work with as an actress. She's just phenomenal. There's a whole bunch, but those have always been on. She's been on that wish list for many years. So I think those two would be some of my top ones for sure.
Yeah, I think we could all die happy if we got to work with Black Widow.
I know, right?
Seriously. Like, I'm totally okay with being like, hi, ScarJo, do you want to do that weird laid thing you did in that movie where you flipped the guy over? Like, that would be, like, not sexually. I just think it would be cool to have that done to you and then to say that Black Widow did it to you. I'd just be like, yeah, she laid flat. And
I'd be willing to go into a body cast for you. I don't need a stunt double. Let her crush me. It's fine,
Totally. I will say you broke my whatever. You broke my collarbone. Fuck. No, she's great. And even like in Her, where she played the AI, and she wasn't even on screen, like to have the inflection and the tone of her voice to be able to act that shit out is.
I know.
Yeah, no,
she kind of do it all, right? So, and even in Sing, that animation feature.
Yeah,
she's just got a great voice. She's fun, and it's just really.
She has 2 albums, I believe.
Yep.
Like not one of the, like many people don't know that ScarJo has albums, and she got that jazzy,
I
bluesy
know.
voice that
Almost a timeless voice that way, right? I find,
yeah,
so
I couldn't agree more. What's one thing every director needs to know?
I don't know if needs to know is such a interesting way of wording it, because that makes it assume that I know all the tricks, and I think that filmmaking is a individual process with different creative approaches. But maybe any advice I could give a director, because who am I to sort of offer that up? But something that works for me that I could share with people that are either just starting out or wanting to know is trust the people that you put together to make the movie. Trust your department heads, you know, because all of those people are artists too, and collaborating with other artists is part of the joy of making movies. Um, there are many different ways to make movies, in that regard. But what I've seen work the best in my career is when you actually get to trust your designer, you trust your costume designer and your lighting guys and your props people to bring forth their artistic talents. And only from that, when you get the best, and when you let people breathe and you let people bring their talents to the floor, and then you get to see what they can offer, and then take those and use it to make the best product, best story possible. Um, I think is a recipe for success. So keep that in mind. Treat everybody with respect. Try and get to know your crew and your cast on on more of a personal level. You'll find people will trust and open up to you more, and I think that just opens up the creative floodgates a little better.
Yeah. I was listening to somebody talk about the whole Tom Cruise blowing up on set, Christian Bale blowing up on set, like certain directors, demanding and treating the Joss Whedon shit from the shit. Like it doesn't work, and it makes everybody clam up. I would imagine, like treating anybody in that way would make them clam up from doing the best thing that they're supposed to do. So, in that environment, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's only going to be certain there's only going to be certain personalities that do well in that environment and maybe thrive on that. But I can tell you from being that ear from crew over all my years, I've heard I've heard what works and what doesn't work. So I remembered that when I get to the director's chair, I want to make sure I treat everybody with the equal respect that they're wanting from me. And I will respect them and trust their judgment and their creativity. And in that, I have found that I seem to work, and there's a better working environment on our sets when that happens. And that's what I want to show up to work to every day. I don't want a toxic environment. I don't want, there's already enough stress in a movie production because of the schedule and the time
Yeah.
constraints, that you don't need to add to that. So,
Last question, and this is about here. And I didn't even ask you earlier. I guess I should. Like you were born in Ontario, grew up in Ontario, and then moved here at some point, or were you born here and then lived in Ontario and
yeah,
vice
just a quick summary. I basically grew up in Orangeville, Ontario, which is an hour outside of Toronto.
Yeah.
Moved to Toronto to go to film school, and I worked in the film industry for 5 years there. That La Femme Nikita kind of covered most of that.
Yep.
And then I moved to Vancouver because I always wanted to go to Vancouver because I was a big skier and snowboarder. So I just packed up everything I owned in what was it, 2000, year 2000, after Y2K. Moved out to Vancouver and worked in the film industry out there as a second AD for like 6 years. And then kept getting calls from Winnipeg because they were booming at that point. That was like the early 2003, 2004,
Yeah.
and they were needing some additional experienced crew out there because they were booming. And I got one call, and then I went back to Vancouver, and I got another call, and so I met my wife on one of those movies that lives here,
Yeah.
and we long distance dated, and eventually we had to make a decision about who's moving where. And it just sounded like I was going to get not only our relationship was going to flourish if I moved here, but also my professional career would advance better out here, because the competition out in Vancouver is insane.
Sure.
And I don't think I would have gotten a chance to direct as early in my career as I would have if I had stayed. and coming out here was like the best decision ever. So I've been out here officially since 2006.
Okay. So then you can answer this a little with a little bit more perspective. What's so great about, and there's many things, but to you, what's great about Micheal the film? Because that's the whole purpose of this talking to you guys, is to share your experience working with
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, having the present working with Toronto crews and Vancouver crews, and when you work in those area, like those big cities, you're hard pressed to work with the same crew, over and over again. Sometimes you're just always working with brand new crews. Yeah, sometimes your department might stick together a little bit, but even that can get dissected very quickly. And then coming here, you realize that everybody is so connected and in a great way. It's such a small community and everybody kind of knows everybody. And the more I started to work here, man, the support and the I don't know, it's like the shorthand in the communication. Like after a while, when you start working the same crew over and over again, you know that Heather Graham's got that covered. I don't have to. My director from out of town, if I'm the AD, I can. They'd be like, oh well, what about costumes? They don't know about. Don't worry, I've already checked with Heather. She knows. And it's like this shorthand we know. Doug Morrow and I are. He was one of the first guys I met here in Winnipeg, and him and I have been buddies ever since. And it's just about like watching each other's back and covering each other and giving them little tip. Hey, Dougie Morrow, this is coming down the pipeline. I just heard the producers talking about this, and it's sort of like I love the support you get here. And man, people are tough as nails out here. Like they are so hardworking that they don't complain. Like the harsh weather. We're all used to it as Winnipeggers now,
it.
but
Yeah, yeah.
you get out of town, people are like, you people are insane. How are you shooting out in -30? And it's like, we know how to deal with it. We know how to work in it. And our crews are just so strong-willed. They're full of heart. They have a good time, and they're all buddies. Like that's the other thing is that once the work is done, then you find out that 18 of them are all going to the King's Head for a pint because they're pals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I've really learned to appreciate that small community feel and support here in Manitoba. That's the endearing part about being here.
And you know what? Like, I mean, population's going to climb eventually, but I don't like. I love that we're never going to get too big for that. That's always going to be part of the small town, small city film. And I just love it for you guys. I mean, I'm not in it, but I just think it's great to see something that you've all worked so hard to preserve and make for yourself, and then support each other inside of it. Like I'm an outsider, but I bet you can't go to LA and throw a rock down a fucking studio lane and find the same camaraderie and consideration, because you said it's fickle and cutthroat, and it can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jimmy, before we let this man go, you want to shut me up for a minute? Do you got anything else?
Man, I spent a lot of the episode listening and learning, and I could not be more appreciative to have you on the show, Doug. It was wonderful to talk with you.
Oh, well, thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, it was nice to have an opportunity to tell these kind of stories, and you don't really get asked too much about this, so it was a pleasure to kind of share with you guys, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me on. It's awesome.
Oh, dude, you
right on.
You have a spot at the table, sir. Just say, hey, I'm free. I'm not on anything. You guys doing anything? You want? We'll sit. Well, this whole thing was to be like, hey, like I said, to you, put some spotlight on a really strong film community and a couple film nerds in town who do a podcast together. Well, that's right up our fucking alley. So that's a win-win for everybody. But like, come back and we'll put you in one of our shows. We'll ask you some questions. We'll get you to play the game with us.
Oh, anytime. That would be awesome.
You know what I smell, Jimmy? I smell a Doug and Doug versus a Micheal and Jimmy.
Well, what's funny is Doug and I every show we work on, we take photos of the Doug and Doug, and we always have these fights of who's Doug number 1 and who's Doug number 2. So we kind of have this fun rivalry going on between us, but at the heart we're good pals and we love each other. So I miss him. I haven't seen him in a long time because of COVID.
Yeah, no, fuck that. It's
anyway.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we are.
Anyways, Doug,
there's the shining light.
I feel it's more like a lighthouse at this point. I think it's we're not that podcast. We don't pretend to know shit about a fucking pandemic, but I know a thing or two about hope. So that's about it. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another Real Debaters production. Doug, thank you so much for giving us your time. I'm gonna co-sign with Jimmy. Super great learning experience. The things I don't know, I love talking to you guys about. That you're patient with us and being like, no, we'll explain this to you because we do it all the time. But it's super solid to sit down with you guys and talk about your industry and get to know you better and converse back and forth and have some fun with it. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you for the ride, guys, and gladly come and join you. And when this is over and we can actually hang out, go out for a beer and talk a little more. It'd be great.
For sure. Now, to everybody, if you want to check us out past this episode, head to therealdebaters.ca. That is all things us. That is that's the website for the blog, the staff photos, picture where you can see Doug after this episode is up. You'll be able to see all of his information if you want to track him down and converse with him off of our show. His information and contact him will be there as well. The merch stand is there, and the skateboard machine, according to Jimmy, is still on. That running joke still exists. Buy a skateboard with the Real Debaters logo on it, and then you can skateboard around and say, do any other podcasts have skateboard decks? Because we have skateboard decks. So go buy one. It'll probably break, but just go buy one. They're that's how you market your own shit. And then if you want to donate to our cause, there's a donate tab there. It is a $1, $3, $5 maximum. If you give me more than $5, I will give you the equivalent back down to $5 because you're just silly. For $1, we'll give you a shout out on the show. We'll say, hey, you, thanks for giving us $1. You fucking rock, because it goes towards making the show better. Idea number 2, we will give you a little bit of our spotlight. You can send us what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see on the show, and we'll give you a little bit of a moment where you're like, hey, XYZ person, they like the Titanic. What do you guys think about it? And we'll either make fun of you or agree with you. You can do that for a friend, or you can do that for yourself, whatever you feel like. And option number 3 is to be an executive producer with our show. For a $5 donation, you get to invent an idea for the show, create one rule that we have to follow for one of our debates, and we'll say it was executive produced by you. And you can do that for yourself, or you can do that for somebody else. And then we'll put your name on the show. And then you can be like, yeah, I helped these fucking idiots talk about shit. So that's on the website as well, too. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been me, it has been Jimmy, and it has been Doug. And it's been a pleasure talking for you. Tune in next week and watch all the movies, kids. Bye-bye.